Chapter 181. You sit still. Don't ruin the plan. Zhang Taotao came back running with news. It matched what Lin Moyu had predicted. In every bracket, the Eagle Country national team that had been making impressive progress collapsed all at once. There were no tactics, only reckless charges, and total defeat. In the small courtyard of Baishan, by a low tea table, Ning Tairan listened and said flatly, "The Eagle Country team failed." Meng Anwen closed his eyes. A thin wisp of steam curled up from his cup and brushed his lips. "I told you," he said, "you can't have your cake and eat it too." "The berserker's madness has a cost," he went on. "Pumping people full of drugs to force them past their limits at the price of their sanity, that was always going to end badly." He sounded entirely sure. From the moment Eagle Country began researching those potions, he had suspected trouble, and the results had only confirmed it. He exchanged a look with Bai Yuan. They were on the same page. "The Shrine Maiden from Little Sakura is an interesting case," someone remarked. Meng Anwen snorted. "That divinity isn't a god at all. She's backed by a Shikigami. It's basically a twisted onmyoji trick. You know what Shikigami are." Meng Anwen was quiet and traditional by nature. Occupations like Yingguo's potion research or Nanako's trade never held any interest for him. He dismissed them as useless, not out of pride, but because when it came to his own craft, he was unshakably confident. He liked to say he was second to none. He let out a short, clipped laugh. Bai Yuan and Ning Tairan didn't argue. Bai shifted the conversation. "If those people are going to make a move, it'll be in a few days. Lao Meng, you should stay alert." Meng Anwen hummed in reply. "Don't worry, everything's already set. The Elder will be ready too, we just need to wait for them to act." Ning Tairan frowned, puzzled. "What are you talking about?" Bai Yuan didn't hide it. He explained that they were using Lin Moyu as bait. Ning Tairan leapt to his feet. "What? You're using Moyu as bait? My granddaughter is still there." Bai waved his hand calm. "Relax. We've arranged safeguards. Moyu isn't the only bait. Lin Mohan is in position, and the Elder is waiting as well. Sit down and don't ruin the plan," Meng Anwen said in a low voice. Ning Tairan spun around in an instant. He wasn't ignorant of the reason. He simply answered, "All right, I'll wait here." He stayed put, alert and ready to spring into action at the first sign of trouble. He would never let Ning Yi be in danger. The finals were still underway. Vatican Sanctuary's team and Xiajing Academy had collided in the center of the arena, which was flooded with blinding light until it felt like a tiny sun. One by one, Vatican Sanctuary's professionals were ejected from the ring, dazed and confused. Many didn't even understand how they'd been defeated. One flash of light, and it was over. Zhang Taotao's voice cut through the glare. "His name is Su Sheng, Master Sheng Guang. He's a legendary pro. He was admitted to the Creation Academy and should have hit level 30 about 2 months ago. He had deliberately kept himself at a low rank for this professional competition. Outwardly, he talked about winning the whole thing, but everyone who really knew him knew the truth. He wanted a stage to show off his flashy basic moves. Su Sheng had unveiled a single skill that instantly eliminated the Vatican Sanctuary team. It was terrifyingly effective. From the start of the tournament, their team had relied on him. No one else really did anything. Su Sheng would pull off a move and the match was over. The teams he knocked out seldom even understood what had happened to them. Now he stood alone in the ring, white light washing over him, holy and remote. His gaze swept the stands, and when it landed on Lin Moyu, a flicker of disgust crossed his face. As a holy light mage, he carried an instinctive aversion to undead summoners like Lin Moyu, the same professional revulsion Mo Yun had felt the first time he saw Lin Moyu. The last match of the first round of the finals was about to begin, Saint fighting God Realm against Saint Christian. The matchup had everyone's eyes glued to the arena. One competitor in particular, Du Shenyu of the Saint fighting God Realm, used a rare profession known as the Starfighter. Starfighters were renowned for their high, well-balanced stats and flashy, devastating skills. St. Christian's team also fielded a special class, the Crusaders, hybrids of knights and warriors who could both dish out and soak up damage. The two sides were perfectly matched, exchanging blows in a dazzling back and forth. The fight dragged on for a full 10 minutes before a winner emerged. Saint Fighting God's Realm eked out a narrow victory and advanced to the next round. The Shenxia Empire's top healers immediately began restoring the competitors. The next match would start in an hour. That left only 4 teams in the level 20 bracket. Lin Moyu's team, Xiajing Academy's official Su Sheng team, Aurora Academy's official team, and St. Do Shenyu's Star Fighter squad. Lin Moyu had been paired against Saint Fighting God's Realm, while Xiajing Academy would face Zhendan Academy. Zhang Taotao relayed what he'd learned about their opponents. Powerful, versatile skills and very balanced attributes. Their attacks mixed both elemental and physical damage. The class had the Star Armor skill, which gave it exceptionally high defenses against both elemental and physical attacks. On paper, it had no obvious weaknesses, but no matter how well-rounded a class is, could it beat a skeleton warrior? If you don't have any control skills, it's almost impossible to win in a straight-up fight against a skeleton warrior. Lin Moyu had watched the earlier match between the Star Warrior and the Crusaders and noticed something important. Neither side used control skills. They had reached their limit, and the absence of control abilities wasn't a tactical choice, it was a limitation. Without crowd control, the outcome was predictable. Lin Moyu stepped into the ring alone. Opposite him, 5 players from Saint Fighting God's domain climbed the stage. Thanks to their top healers, they were fully recovered and their spiritual energy was at its peak. Their lineup consisted of 4 starfighters, backed by a War King. They had foregone a prophet in favor of the War King's more versatile support. His buff could elevate one teammate's offensive rank by a notch, effectively boosting that fighter's attack potential. The 4 starfighters fixed Lin Moyu with eager, confident stares. They were ready. Lin Moyu, we know you're strong, but we're not weak. Our star armor cuts incoming damage dramatically. We can ignore that skeleton guardian and take you down directly. You're just a mage. You won't last 2 seconds against our attack. Your curses might be powerful, but that's the last thing we're afraid of. They spoke with the easy confidence of people who thought they'd found a weakness, saying it so bluntly that Lin Moyu felt a little put on the spot. He only replied lightly, I wish you luck. Don't worry, we'll do it. They were all but dismissive, as if the outcome were already decided. The start signal sounded. The War King's support buff surged over them, quickly boosting their stats, and the 4 starfighters lunged at Lin Moyu like lightning. A golden halo bathed each of them, their star armor in action. It greatly increased their defense and cut down both elemental and physical damage. Starfighters were a distinctive class in the Saint Dominion, and star armor was their signature skill. Lin Moyu lifted a finger. The arena flared red, and a wash of crimson light swept over everything. Red shackles sprang up on the heads of the 5 opponents at once, and their momentum dropped as if invisible ropes had tied them down. For a moment the curse seemed to have the upper hand. Then 4 of the starfighters' bodies burst into golden radiance. Their star armor blossomed outward, enveloping the red shackles. Under that golden pressure, the shackle as spider cracked. They didn't shatter completely, but their grip was badly weakened. Lin understood at once why the instructors had said not to fear your own curse. Even without an elder to lift it, the star armor skill could suppress it. Nice skill, one of them muttered, genuinely impressed. The closest starfighter lunged. Just as he was about to strike, his vision dimmed, and a huge blade came down from nowhere. A skeleton warrior had appeared, a gaunt figure swinging a great cleaver. The starfighters were ready for that, though. They rolled aside to avoid the skeletal swing and tried to come at Lin from the flanks. A cleaver came again. They dodged. Another strike. They avoided it and countered, angling in close. Again and again the big blade rose and fell, and again the fighters sidestepped, weaving between slashes as they pressured Lin from all sides. The 4-star fighters barely had time to react before a flash of light hit them and a spell slammed into their formation. With several sharp detonations, they were thrown into the air, and only then did they get a clear look at what had happened. 10 skeleton warriors and 10 skeleton mages had formed a perfect ring around Lin Moyu, closing all gaps. If they wanted to reach Lin Moyu, they would have to break through that defensive circle first. The setup was unexpected. None of them had predicted she would use such a trick. The skeleton mages struck next. The starfighters dodged what they could, but lightning spells were different. Lightning flashed, thunder rolled, and the bolts left the starfighters reeling. They could avoid most spells, but not the electric ones. Their star armor absorbed the brunt of the damage, and with the healing support from the King of War, they were able to hang on for the moment. Then, Lin Moyu shifted slightly. A few of the skeleton mages ceased targeting the starfighters and instead turned their spells toward the King of War's assistant. The assistant was still within the spell's effective range. The mysterious Truth Point 2 effect only applied inside that radius, so the mages concentrated where it would matter most. The skeleton mage's range covered the entire arena. There was nowhere for the War King's aid to hide. Relying on the War King's support now would be suicide. Seeing that, the 4 starfighters shouted in unison, "Attack from above!" They launched themselves skyward, aiming to vault over the skeletal warrior and strike Lin Moyu from above. But as they rose, the skeleton leapt too, meeting them with uncanny precision. The two sides collided midair, and the skeleton made a brutal, unexpected move. With one bony hand, it seized one of the fighters, pinning him, while the other hand drew a jagged blade and hacked wildly. There was no way to dodge a grip like that. Bone fingers closed around them, and the blade tore through armor and flesh. In seconds, they had been stabbed and slashed repeatedly. The War King couldn't get close to help, and healing was impossible under those conditions. The 4 fighters thrashed and screamed. Their star armors flared in a blinding eruption of light. At last, with a desperate burst of strength, they wrenched themselves free from the skeleton's grasp. When they turned, their Battle King's protege was already standing outside the ring. The 4 of them went pale. He'd just been bragging that he'd beat Lin Moyu, and he'd been beaten so easily. Chapter 182. Villains often die from talking too much. Lin Moyu won again, and the outcome came as early as everyone had expected. No one was surprised when he summoned 20 skeletons. From the stands, someone called out, "I knew it. 10 skeleton warriors and 10 skeleton mages." "See? I called it," another replied, proud. "That's a whole squad. No one can stand against him," a third added. Those who guessed correctly beamed like they'd made some great prediction. So far, Lin Moyu had shown 3 skills: Summon Skeleton Warrior, Summon Skeleton Mage, and Slow Curse. Everyone was eager to see whether he had any other tricks up his sleeve. Next onto the stage stepped the Xiajing Academy team, led by Su Sheng. Aurora Academy's team followed. 2 legendary primary combat professions were about to clash: Holy Light Mage versus Divine Eye Shooter. Su Sheng's gaze was cold and arrogant. "My Holy Light Mage ranks in the top 5 among the legendary main combat classes," he said. "Your Divine Eye Shooter doesn't even make the top 10. What exactly do you plan to use against me?" Liu Shanren watched with a serious expression. He knew Su Sheng wasn't bluffing. The Holy Light Mage was indeed a legendary main combat class, and the gap in power between the 2 professions was not small. Liu Shanren's voice was cold. "True strength and weakness are only revealed in battle." Su Sheng snorted. "Is there really any need to fight? I'm a legendary class too. I'll humor you with a few words. If you were anyone else, I wouldn't bother." Su Sheng's pride was obvious. It had only grown the more attention he attracted. His reputation rested on one thing: his opening move. No one seemed capable of withstanding it. To him, only another legendary class opponent was worth his time. When the formation shimmered and the signal sounded, the match started instantly. Su Sheng lifted a hand and light exploded outward, exactly the same attack he always used. It was devastating and swift, a technique that had made him virtually unbeatable. From start to finish, the whole thing took less than 10 seconds. As the light faded, members of Zhendong Academy materialized at the edge of the arena, one after another. At the very end, Liu Shanren himself stood outside the ring. Even a legendary class like him had been defeated, so cleanly and inexplicably that he didn't even understand how he had lost. Su Shengju looked down at him and said coolly, "Like I said, there's a huge gap between us." Then he glanced at Lin Moyu. "It's your turn. I don't need a break. Do you?" "Hurry up and finish this," Lin shot back. "My teammate can go rest." Su Shengju was openly dismissive. If not for the flashy skill scroll on the line, he wouldn't have bothered with what he considered a boring match. He didn't take Lin Moyu seriously, or any of the other professionals for that matter. The 4 people standing behind him were just academy placement, sent along to make up the numbers. They didn't need to do anything but watch the show. A referee hovered over the ring and addressed Lin Moyu. Su Sheng proposed to start the match now. Do you want to compete immediately, or after a break? Lin had nothing to lose. Let's start now. The crowd braced, but anyone who understood the situation knew why Su was so confident. Su's bone armor wasn't decoration. It made the entire difference. It didn't matter what flashy skills an opponent brought. Unless they could shatter that armor, they might as well be swinging at air. The bone armor had even been known to shrug off the Flame Demon King's death ray. Against that kind of protection, the attacks of a level 29 professional would barely make a dent. No matter how legendary a pro claims to be, everyone has their limits. Lin Moyu walked into the ring. Su Sheng called a few words to the teammates behind him, and several of them quickly climbed down from the ropes. I know you're from Xiajing Academy, Su Sheng sneered. I've heard what you did there, leading people through dungeons just to farm points. How shameful. Ordinary students, it'll always be ordinary, he added with practiced disdain. Lin Moyu's expression darkened. You can be proud if you want, he thought, but don't try to lecture me. Who do you think you are? Are you crazy? Lin Moyu snapped. Su Sheng blinked in surprise. What did you say? If you're crazy, go see a therapist, Lin Moyu shot back. Don't just bark here like a dog. Su Sheng's face flushed with anger. Zhang Taotao cocked her head, puzzled. Yi, doesn't that sound familiar? Ning Yi giggled, a little embarrassed. I heard it where I'm from. Zhang Taotao's mouth twitched. She looked like she wanted to laugh, but was trying to hold it in. Su Sheng's voice went ice cold. You have the nerve to insult me? You really have the nerve. Lin Moyu only snorted. Idiot. He turned his back on him. Some people were all pride and self-righteousness, showy and overconfident. He had half expected this man to be someone important, but it turned out he was nothing but hot air. Su Sheng's tone dropped even lower. Words are meaningless. Fists are the only final answer. Lin Moyu didn't bother arguing. Perhaps the weight of whatever title this man clung to had made him reckless. Reason was useless here. The only thing that would get his attention was force. The clash began. 5 skeletal warriors materialized in front of Lin Moyu. Su Sheng barely glanced at them and raised his voice to the empty arena. Undead of the necrotic kind, feel the wrath of the holy light. A blinding sphere of white flame erupted and filled the arena. For a moment, nothing could be seen but pure light. Through that glare, Lin Moyu's skeleton-like armor flashed as blow after blow struck it, clear proof his defenses were being targeted. The light assaulted him from every angle, impossible to dodge, pervasive in a way no ordinary attack could be. Even the finest knight could not block such all-encompassing radiance. There was something unusual about the light itself, a particular resonance, a scent of old iron and incense, a cadence to it that stirred something inside Lin Moyu. Familiarity prickled at the edges of his memory. He had seen or felt this kind of light before. I finally understood. It wasn't physical at all. It was a mental attack. The sensation matched, 89% like the breath of his soul flame. Su Sheng's strike wasn't a raw elemental blast, but a psychic assault, a subtle, corrosive influence. It didn't scorch like a fevered soul flame. It crept in like warm water, slowly overwhelming the mind. Victims didn't realize how they were being undone until it was too late. Fortunately, the mental attack was still within the protective range of the skeleton armor. Confident, Su Sheng steadied the light with one hand and lifted his other arm high. Under his gaze, Lin Moyu stood dazed, utterly still. Go to hell, Su Sheng said. He unleashed his ability. Blade of Light. A massive broadsword of radiance materialized and slammed down toward Lin Moyu. The blade pulsed with holy power and moved with terrifying speed, almost instantaneous. This was why a holy light mage could be a legendary class threat. Their light wasn't just bright, it was deadly, concentrated, and devastating. The sword descended, aimed squarely at the motionless figure below. Su Sheng had the advantage of psychic attacks and control over holy light. His light blade had always been unstoppable. He watched, frowning, as the great knife struck the skeleton armor and barely made a mark. The armor's toughness exceeded his expectations. His light blade had even cut down Lu Xianren, who had been a legendary class opponent moments before. Yet Lin Moyu had somehow managed to block it. The realm of light fell silent, every sound amplified. The clattering footsteps of skeletons echoed sharply as 5 skeletal warriors charged through the holy white glow. In an instant they were before Su Sheng, raising their heavy knives to strike. Su Sheng sneered. Holy light was primarily a psychic assault and normally had little effect on the undead. He raised his hand and called out, "Holy light shock!" A blinding surge of radiance erupted, accompanied by a gust of sanctified breath that detonated outward. The 5 skeletons were flung back as if struck by an invisible blast, but Lin Moyu could tell at a glance they hadn't been seriously harmed. The holy light displaced them, but it didn't wound them. The power of the light and the undead strength of the skeletons counterbalanced one another. Who restrains whom depends on the relative strength of each combatant. The skeleton warrior's stats far outmatched Su Sheng's. Su Sheng's attacks could barely harm it. Only the knockback effect of his last skill, more like a crowd control blast, had sent the skeleton warrior sprawling across the arena. Su Sheng still wore his usual arrogance. In his mind, holy light overcame darkness. Undead were meant to be purified and banished by it. But the next instant the skeleton warrior was already on its feet. Every bone was intact, not a scratch on it. "This can't be!" Su Sheng spat, refusing to accept it, and moved to strike again. With a deafening crack, 2 bolts of lightning slammed into his head. Su Sheng shuddered as the attack interrupted his casting. The white halo of holy light that had cloaked the arena winked out, revealing the scene beneath. Black smoke curled off Su Sheng's body, his hair standing on end. "Still not eliminated?" Lin Moyu said, surprised. Legend tier classes really did live up to their reputation. Their attributes weren't comparable to ordinary ones. Even with the mage class's frail body, Su Sheng had managed to take 2 hits from the skeleton warrior without being downed. Now he stood there trembling, embarrassed. Electric spells left a nasty sting. Gritting his teeth, he cast another spell. A white magical shield bloomed around him. Ability, Holy Light Shield. It was the first time he'd ever used a defensive skill. "I admit I underestimated," he began. He didn't get to finish. The skeleton warrior charged and burst into a flurry of sword strikes. The corrupt power of the undead clashed against the holy light, and the skeleton's assault simply tore straight through the shield. With the great blade bearing down, Su Sheng was on the brink. Then a white halo detonated in his palm. The ring of light erupted, throwing the skeleton warrior backward. Ability, Ring of Light. It produced the same shake and knockback effect he'd seen from a mage's fire ring. The impact sent the skeleton flying. Boom, boom, 2 more bolts of lightning struck him. Su Sheng never finished his sentence. The skeletal mage's attack hit him again. This time he didn't survive and materialized outside the ring, eliminated. Even as he was carried away, his face still wore that same arrogant look. He simply couldn't accept being out. Lin Moyu shook his head and murmured a line he'd heard before. A villain is undone by his own words. Chapter 183. Counselor Shu Wei, Demon Worship Association. Under the ring, Su Sheng glared at Lin Moyu, outrage flashing across his face. He sputtered, as if offended that he hadn't been allowed to finish his sentence. "Win! Lin Moyu wins!" The announcement rang out. A ripple of disbelief ran through the crowd. What? Su Sheng's attack failed to affect Lin Moyu. How did Lin Moyu read him? What exactly was Su Sheng's move? People who had come expecting to see the legendary Mage of Holy Light, Su Sheng, dominate, instead sighed one after another, both praising Lin Moyu's strength and puzzling over how an attack once thought unbeatable had been neutralized. Su Sheng stared at Lin Moyu for a long moment, then spoke in a low, controlled voice. "You've won this time. Once we've all advanced to higher-tier professions, we'll meet again, and then I'll show you what I can really do." With that, he turned and walked away. Even in defeat, his arrogance remained intact. Lin Moyu watched him go and thought the man seemed a little odd, as if lost in his own world. The duel was over, and the arena's formation dissolved. Ningyi leapt into the ring, threw her arms around Lin Moyu, and shouted with delight, "We won!" Lin Moyu hugged her back and patted her head. Victory had felt inevitable to him. From the start of the competition, he'd been sure the championship would be theirs. Even after the announcement, his expression wavered only briefly, as his eyes tracked the hovering prize, a glowing primary skill scroll. It would be incredibly useful to him, especially since Xiajing Academy desperately needed such a thing. At the edge of the arena, Ning Tyron bristled. He puffed out his beard and glared. "Kid, let go of Yi." Bai Yuan chuckled. "Old man Ning, you're being dramatic. Your granddaughter hugged him first. That's how things are decided. If anyone's going to let go, it'll be her." Ning Tyron snorted. "You better not bully Yi. If you do, I'll make sure you regret it." Bai Yuan slapped his thigh in amusement. "Don't worry, Lin Moyu isn't the sort to bully anyone." He softened his tone as he spoke to Yi, addressing her with obvious affection. Ning Tyron shut his mouth, watching in silence. The child he'd raised with so much fuss had been so easily won over, and he couldn't help feeling a little put out. In the elementary division, the three-group competition wrapped up quickly and the final standings were clear. Xiajing Academy once again proved why it is the premier school of the Shenxia Empire. Indeed, even on the world stage, it ranks the very best. Zhendan Academy took the championships for the grade 10 through grade 19 groups, while Xiajing Academy claimed the top spots in the 20th and 30th grade groups. The 20th grade title went to Lin Moyu's team, and the 30th grade championship was won by the official team sent by Xiajing Academy. Overall, the Shenxia Empire swept the titles in the three divisions under level 40 in the professional contest, reaffirming its status as one of the world's dominant powers. Smaller nations and lesser forces had little chance of competing. This kind of outcome had happened before. On one occasion, the Shenxia Empire even took every category, including the individual exhibition, so the international community was hardly surprised by another clean showing. With the results settled, the award ceremony began. A powerful professional materialized in midair. His presence radiated a terrifying aura, so oppressive that people found themselves short of breath. "He's at least level 80, someone whispered. "That kind of presence, you don't see top professionals over level 80 very often," another murmured. "Amazing. I wish I could reach that level." "Don't get ahead of yourself," came a scoffing reply. "You should worry about hitting second rank first." The crowd's hushed conversation made the hierarchy clear. In this world, professionals were ranked by level and by how many cycles, turns of advancement they had completed. Anyone below level 40 was considered a low-level professional. Those who reached level 40 and pushed on to level 69, having completed a second cycle, were regarded as high-level professionals, the mainstream fighters of the field. Above that, the truly exceptional were those who attained level 70 and had finished 3 cycles. They were the top professionals, and they were extremely rare. Fewer than 1 in 100 could ever reach that threshold. What made the gap so meaningful was that after level 70, each additional level brought immense jumps in attributes, creating further stratification within the elite. Those in the 70 to 79 range were top-tier professionals, but even among them, a level 80 presence stood out as especially formidable. Anyone between about level 81 and 89 was considered a top-tier practitioner. Once someone reached level 90, they entered the God tier, an almost mythical rank. God tier practitioners were extraordinarily rare. Even in a powerhouse like the Shenxia Empire, there were only a handful. The system was like a pyramid. The higher you climbed, the fewer people you found. Bai Yuan, Ning Tyron, and Meng Anwen were examples of those rare God-tier figures, the Dinghai God Needle and the Pillar of Heaven of the Shenxia Empire, and in many eyes of all humanity. People didn't encounter them in everyday life. Ordinary folk knew them only from records and textbooks. So the top-tier practitioner standing before Su Sheng was already a formidable figure. He had to swallow his pride. Even with his reputation as a legendary practitioner, there was no guarantee he could ever break into the 80-plus ranks. The later stages of cultivation were brutally hard. Many legendary practitioners stalled after a few breakthroughs, and every further advance demanded immense sacrifice. For a top professional well into his 80s to come out in person and present the awards was a show of face in itself. The old man's aura slowly ebbed away, and his deep, commanding gaze swept over the 3 champion teams. "You've all done very well," he said. "There's a bright future ahead of you." Everyone accepted the praise with delight. Who wouldn't be pleased to be complimented by such a respected figure? Only Lin Moyu and Ning Yi remained unmoved. Lin had long ago learned to be indifferent. He dealt with god-level professionals like Bai Yiwan and Meng Anwen before, and a top elder like this one left him unruffled. Ning, whose grandfather was a god-level professional, felt the same lack of excitement. "My name is Shu Wei," the old man continued. "I'm from the Empire. You can call me Mr. Shu. If you ever need anything, come to me. Maybe I can be of help." He gave a slight wave of his hand, and the set of championship prizes, hovering in the air, floated down toward the winners. Lin Moyu found himself oddly unsettled. Coming to him if they needed help? Was that meant as an offer of assistance, or as a way of currying favor? Ning leaned over and whispered, "That was a little strange." They both felt it, an undercurrent to Shu Wei's words they couldn't quite name, but neither could say exactly what was wrong. The moment people heard the name Shu Wei, they all realized who he was. Counselor Shu Wei, one of the Shenxia Empire's 12 counselors, was no minor official. He was a true power player, someone who could sway imperial decisions. "He's Counselor Shu Wei," someone whispered. "One of the 12? That's a big shot. Is he stronger than the White God?" "No. The White God is a god-tier expert, the backbone of the Empire. Shu Wei is powerful and influential, but not on that level." Even so, Shu Wei's authority was immense. The 3 championship prizes were automatically awarded to the winning teams, and Shu Wei himself presented them. He handed the ornate box, inside the gold coins, a restorative potion, and a gleaming skill scroll to Lin Moyu. "Young man," he said, "if you run into any trouble, come to me." Before Lin could reply, Shu Wei turned to Ning Yi. "Give my regards to Mr. Ning. I'll pay a visit when I have the time." "Ning Ye," I inclined her head. "All right." Duangao leaned in and asked in a low voice, "Yi, you know Counselor Shu?" Ning Yi shook her head. "I don't know him." Duangao opened his mouth. "What about you?" But Miao Yu tugged him back and shot him a warning look, signaling him not to ask. Everyone present knew Ning Yi came from an unusual background, and the family elders were acquainted with Shu Wei, so a connection between them wasn't out of the question. After distributing the prizes, Shu Wei announced in a clear voice, "The level 40 team competition is officially over. The individual contest will take place here tomorrow. All contestants, please prepare. I wish everyone the best of luck." With that, he leapt into the air and was gone in an instant. The Shenxia Empire had never made a big show of these professional contests. Even the awards were handed out casually. It suited the professionals' mentality. No pomp, no fuss. Strength is the only thing that matters. Lin Moyu stared at the little box and the potion scroll in front of him, then reached for the box. The moment his fingers brushed it, he felt that something was wrong. It was a faint, strange sensation, like a breath slipping across his skin. Lin Moyu checked himself carefully, but found nothing wrong. He shrugged it off and closed the box. Then he divided the contents, 50 million gold in all, 10 million to each person. For Zhao, it was pocket change, but for Zhang Taotao and the others, it was a serious windfall. Duan Gao was already grinning and practically drooling, counting the coins as fast as he could. Lin Moyu took the Baishan elixir from the box and activated his detection skill. A status window popped up. Elementary magic elixir. Permanently increases all attributes by plus 200. Effect triggers only upon the 10th ingestion. 200 points to every attribute is trivial at late stages, but early on it's a massive boost, comparable to a top-tier gold piece of equipment. These elementary elixirs aren't sold on any market. They're essentially priceless. Someone had once offered 100 million gold for one and still couldn't buy it. The only catch is that an elixir like this can only be used once per person. If you want to keep increasing your attributes permanently, from now on you can only use intermediate or high-level magic potions. Lin Moyu tossed the vial to Ning Yi. "Drink this." He stowed the glowing skill scroll away. They were in the Baishan courtyard when, as Lin Moyu reached for the box, Meng Anwen's tone changed. "Something's reacted," she said. Bai Yuan raised an eyebrow. "Who?" Meng Anwen's voice turned low. "Shu Wei. I'm not entirely sure yet, but I'm close. I'll run a check and confirm it." Ning Tairan murmured, "So it really is him. Be careful, don't make a mistake." "If it is him, that's serious," Bai Yun said. I never expected the Demon Worship Association to be lurking this deep into our territory. Chapter 184. Elder Sister is also a decoy, leading to the Demon Worship Society. Shu Wei was one of the 12 pillars of the Shenxia Empire, an authority second only to names like Baishen and a handful of other greats. If he had been compromised, it wouldn't just be a disaster for Shenxia, it would be catastrophic for humanity as a whole. That was why even the upper echelons of the Shenxia leadership were involved, and why Meng Anwen, with his eyes closed in concentration, kept watching and confirming every thread of evidence. This was not a small matter. It demanded patience and precision. Meanwhile, the competition continued. After the team rounds, Lin Moyu and Ning Yi advanced to the high-level contest. The high-level arena had already finished, and the awards ceremony was underway, presided over fittingly by Shu Wei himself. Lin Moyu's team took first place in the level 40 division. Historically, whenever a team from the Creation Theological Academy entered the professional contest, victory was all but guaranteed. Among the 3 top schools of Xiejing Academy, Chuangshen, Chuangxi, and Yanhuang, Chuangshen always claimed the crown. In the advanced arena, the same 3 groups took the same 3 sets of championship prizes, 500 million gold coins, a shimmering mid-level skill scroll, and a mid-tier magic potion. The intermediate potion permanently increased every attribute by 2,000, a fundamental boost, and one that wasn't small for a professional around level 40. Lin Moyu felt a surge of joy when he saw Lin Mohan crowned champion. But when his eyes fell on the chest of gold coins, a chill ran down his spine. Something about the box looked wrong. "Yi, use your skill and inspect that coin chest," he said. Ning Yi didn't hesitate. She activated her ability, Dark Vision. The world around her drained of color and snapped into shades of gray. Details that were invisible to ordinary sight came into harsh focus. She could have picked out the coin inside the box as easily as if the lid were open. As she scanned the chest in that shadowed mode, she found what Lin Moyu had sensed. "There is something wrong," she said. "I can see a black haze hovering in the coin chest. It's a little like the breath of an abyssal demon, but not exactly. I'm not completely sure." Lin Moyu's smile faded. If that haze was even remotely demonic, the prize could be a trap, or worse. He looked toward Lin Mohan, then back to the chest, weighing their next move. Ning Yi had been touched by the abyssal presence and felt a familiar coldness. Because Lin Moyu had also been in contact with that same thing, he could tell something was wrong the instant she mentioned it. Her words confirmed his suspicion. At that moment, Lin Mohan reached out and touched the box of gold coins. Ning Yi leaned in and whispered, "The black air just brushed Sister Han's wrist." Her small face was tense as she glanced at Lin Moyu and lowered her voice again. "Quiet. It's on your wrist too." Then, more urgently, she added, "Hey, it's on me as well." The dark mist had seeped out of the box and spread, slipping into the hands of everyone on the champion team. It clung there, almost motionless and impossible to detect at a glance. This was no ordinary taint. Ning Yi watched closely. "Sister Han noticed it," she murmured, but she didn't flinch. She just smiled. In the dim light, Ning Yi caught even the smallest change in Lin Mohan's expression. A new, troubling thought came to Lin Moyu. Could his sister be one of the bait? He remembered Bai Yuan saying he wasn't the only lure. Thinking it through now, it seemed all too possible. Otherwise, Lin Mohan's reaction would have been inexplicable. Lin Moyu carefully replayed Bai Yuan's words in his mind. Bai had told him to act as bait, to show off his gifts enough to draw attention, and in the process expose the enemies hiding among humanity. Those enemies were a secret faction known as the Demon Worshippers. They worshipped the Abyss Demon King and worked to help him invade the human world. No one really knows why that. Hey, do it. It's just what they do. Over the years, they have been behind several human tragedies, and in the last 2 years alone, they had assassinated several prodigies in the Shenxia Empire. Bai Yuan had dealt with some of them before, but they were only small fry. This time, Bai wanted to lure out much bigger targets, so he used Lin Moyu as bait. He needed Lin to display extraordinary ability and uncanny talent, but never to lay all his cards on the table. Striking that balance was difficult. Lin Moyu revealed his power bit by bit, each time a little more, while carefully concealing the rest. Even the portion he let show was enough to attract worldwide attention. Bai had also warned him he wasn't the only decoy. There were others planted as bait as well. It was looking increasingly likely that Lin Mohan would be used as the bait. At first, Lin Moyu had been ready to take that role himself. He hadn't seemed to fear the danger, but now that Lin Mohan was the one expected to be exposed, he couldn't stop worrying about the boy's safety. Ning Yi noticed his hesitation. "Don't worry," she said. "Sister Han is extremely strong. Nothing's going to happen. A mid-tier legendary class is far tougher than people like Xu Sheng or Zhou Lesheng," she added. "She's not someone you can take down easily." Hearing her, Lin Moyu's tension eased. He knew Bai Yuan would have taken precautions. It was unlikely they would be so reckless. He allowed himself to relax a little. It was the dead of night, but Nanhong City was still bright with lights. The professional players had fallen quiet. Some sat meditating, others slept, each conserving energy for the singles competition tomorrow. The entry list was set, but the rules for the solo event wouldn't be announced until morning. The format changed every year. No one could predict exactly what would happen next. For a single heartbeat, the city lights all went out at once, plunging Nanhong into an eerie darkness. Then the roar of the sea surged up as if from nowhere. A fierce wind rose, and waves towered hundreds of meters high, threatening to drown the coastline. The Shenxia Empire had once moved mountains to reclaim this shore for the professional competitions, pushing the coastline out an extra 1,000 kilometers. The tournament grounds stood on what had once been the deep Tian Hai. Tonight, the main field was wrapped in a shimmering light curtain, while crews remodeled the interior for tomorrow's singles matches. The impact of the giant swells made that light curtain shudder violently. At the same instant, the domes over both the high-level and low-level arenas erupted in brilliant radiance, two enormous sheets of light snapping outward and bathing half of Nanhong City in a sudden, blinding glow. It was as if the sleeping giant of the city had woken up in the middle of the night. Dark clouds swept across the sky and lightning forked down in 100 violent strikes. Thunder rolled over the streets, and in an instant the whole of Nanhong was wrapped in the crackle of storm and light. The thunderbolts were not random. Each one struck a teleportation array. In an instant, every array in Nanhong City was shattered. Not even the one hidden deep beneath the city survived. As the thunder faded, a vast barrier descended like an overturned bowl and slammed down over Nanhong. Most of the city was enveloped, including the conference venue and the professionals' residences. The enchantment rippled out from the shoreline, extending 10 kilometers into the sea and cloaking a huge swath of water. The whole thing took less than a second. By the time the professionals could react, the dome was complete. Nanhong City had been sealed off like a turtle trapped in an urn. There was nowhere to run. Lin Moyu watched the unexpected development with cool detachment. The Demon Worship Society's move didn't unsettle him. If anything, it was predictable. As Bai Yuan had warned, the cult would either do nothing or strike before the professional meeting ended. Once the competition was over, the professionals would disperse across the land. Finding them afterward would be nearly impossible. Right now, however, they were all gathered in Nanhong City. Several rising, legendary professionals, still raw, still untested, were here, and so was the champion team. That concentration of talent was a temptation the Demon Worship Society could hardly resist. If they struck now, they could hit everything at once. The stakes were enormous. Wiping out a few ordinary professionals would be damaging, but killing a single legendary professional in their prime, or better yet, several before they reached it, would be far worse. Such a blow to the Shenxia Empire, and to humanity overall, would eclipse the harm of destroying a city. To the cult's logic, eliminating these threats while they were still in the cradle was the most effective, efficient choice. The Demon King of the Abyss did not want someone as powerful as Baishan to rise among humans. "What's going on?" people shouted. "Is this an enchantment? Oh my god, is there really an enchantment this huge? Could a god-level pro have made a move? What are they trying to do?" The normally quiet building exploded into activity. One by one, the professionals who sensed something wrong poured out of their rooms. Ning Yi rushed over to Lin Moyu. "Is it starting?" Lin Moyu gave a small, grim nod. I didn't expect it would happen so soon." As he spoke, he was already fitting bone armor onto himself and then onto Ning Yi. The door burst open, and Zhang Taotao, Duan Gao, and Miao Yu came running up the stairs. Lin Moyu quickly took the lead, strapping the skeletal plates onto the three of them. "Be careful," he warned. They all looked baffled. Zhang Taotao peered at Lin Moyu's serious expression. "What's happened?" Lin Moyu spoke in a low voice. "Demon worship." Zhang Taotao went pale. "What? They dare make a move now? This is Nanhong City. A professional tournament is going on here. How could those rat bastards pick this moment?" Duan Gao and Miao Yu went pale. Everyone here knew about the Demon Worship Association, a human sect that hated humanity and openly worked to destroy it. When the enormous barrier appeared over the city, more practitioners spilled out into the open, staring up in stunned silence. Lightning cracked along the runes of the spell. A thunderclap split the air. The sky brightened as if noon had come early, and Nanhong City was bathed in harsh daylight. Inside the shimmering dome, coils of living electricity writhed like snakes and then surged toward the assembled people. Screams erupted as practitioners scrambled into fighting stances. A spell of this magnitude could only have been cast by a top enchanter. The force behind it was terrifying. Bolts struck so violently that before they even hit the ground, the earth beneath their feet began to split. The quake ran through the land. Buildings shuddered. Dock foundations cracked. Everything shook as if the world were ending. "It's too awful. My God, I'm going to die. It's over. Nothing can stop this. What do we do? Are we all going to die?" Fear and despair rose like a chorus from the crowd. Such a devastating attack couldn't simply be shrugged off. Even Lin Moyu's face went grave. He wasn't sure his bone armor would hold. Then, as if answering a silent command, two enormous shields popped up from the ranks of the stationed professionals and cut off the lightning in an instant. At the same time, arrows loosed from the station streaked toward the barrier. Light from the impacts exploded outward, the barrier shuddered, and the lightning vanished. The shield hummed, and a puff of black air spilled out. 10 masked figures in black materialized in midair, hovering in formation. All 10 were top-tier professi, Onals, each well over level 70. Another figure appeared after them, and his presence was even more imposing. Lin Moyu's pupils contracted. He wasn't as powerful as Baishen, but he was clearly at least a top professional above level 80, on par with Mr. Xu Wei, whom I had met that afternoon. All of the men wore masks made from some special material. Ning Yi shook her head. "I can't see their faces," she said. Her dark vision couldn't penetrate the masks to reveal who was behind them. "It's them, the Demon Worship Society. How did they get here? They've got nerve. If they tried that in the Shangxia Empire, God Bai would have torn them apart. God Bai can probably find them. They've hidden too well to be found easily." Someone in the crowd recognized the black-clad man's outfit. The cuffs and collars of the cultists bore a distinct mark, the totem of the Abyss Demon King. Each member's emblem differed depending on which Demon King they venerated, but no matter the variation, the insignia instantly identified them as members of the Demon Worship Association. Their lineup spoke for itself. 1 elite fighter above level 80 and 10 more above level 70. This was a dangerous force anywhere, more than enough to crush most smaller factions. The leader of the cult snorted and issued an order, cold as ice. "Kill!" At his command, 9 figures dropped down at once. One drew a bow, another a staff, a third a razor blade. A faint status glow surrounded each of them, marking their strength and roles in the way only those familiar with the system could read. They formed a team, backed by a battle king over level 70 who provided support. 9 of them split for the defense. 6 rushed to the station for high-level professionals, while 3 headed to the low-level professional station. The assault began. The garrison's energy shields flared as they took hit after hit, keeping most of the strikes at bay. Even so, under the relentless onslaught, the barriers began to fracture. Their collapse seemed only a matter of time. Though fear showed on the faces of the professionals at the station, none of them backed down. They braced themselves and prepared to fight. This was what being a true professional meant. No flinching in the face of life and death. Then the sea itself seemed to explode. A colossal, emperor-class abyssal creature surged out of the water, and behind it came wave after wave, tens of thousands of creatures pouring onto the shore like an endless tide. These things had lain hidden beneath the ocean for ages, only now were they being unleashed. It was clear the Demon Worship Society had prepared for this. Lin Moyu watched, horrified and fascinated. These abyssal monsters were not like the ones she had seen on the Yuan battlefield. They had once been ordinary sea creatures, but exposure to abyssal corruption had twisted them into something else entirely, ferocious, otherworldly beasts of the abyss. Kill! Sweet human flesh, a demon is coming. After hiding for so long, we finally get to eat. A tide of abyssal creatures poured ashore, their roars filled with bloodthirsty excitement. The alarm bell rang through Nanhong City. Even within the protection of the barrier, there were still countless combat professionals. They hurried to form teams, lock in their ranks, and prepare for battle. The monsters stormed into the city, clashing with the defenders in a chaotic, brutal melee. In the crowd, Lin Moyu felt a familiar warmth along his wrist. The black aura left from when he'd touched the box earlier had flared to life. The dark light glowed bright, making him stand out like a beacon. Ning Yi, Jiang Taotao, and the other members of the champion team were glowing too, any of them visible as a light in the mass of people. The abyssal demon noticed at once, its eyes fixed on the glowing figures, and it bellowed a command. Here! Kill them! At once, tens of thousands of abyssal monsters swarmed in their direction. Chapter 186. God Shada arrives in person. The singles competition begins. The champion team was the demon's primary target. Thousands of abyssal fiends surged forward, accompanied by countless abyssal beasts, a terrifying tide of hatred and hunger. How the Demon Worship Society managed to gather so many creatures here was anyone's guess, but that question hardly mattered now. The garrison's protective shield was crumbling and could collapse at any moment. Demons of every rank poured through, both low and high, some from the surface and some from the abyss, their roars full of bloodlust. "Get ready for battle," came the shouted orders. "The shield's about to break. Stand ready." Commanders barked encouragement, and a cold, pragmatic incentive was passed along to the fighters. Kill one, and you won't lose anything. Kill two, and you'll gain ground. In those final seconds, the soldiers put aside their fear. Even those who had doubted their strength stilled, gripped their weapons, and prepared to fight. Above the fray, a member of the Demon Worship Society hovered, an elite professional over level 80. He turned his gaze toward the upper arena. The situation there mirrored the chaos below. More abyssal demons were converging, but 7 top professionals, each above level 70, held the line together. With that force assembled, it shouldn't be a problem. At least, that was the calculation the Demon Worship Watcher made. 970 wore a playful expression. "Bravery is admirable, but ultimately useless," he whispered. "Your fate is sealed. People who stand out too much rarely last long." He muttered to himself, almost as if testing the words aloud. "I don't buy it. So far I'm doing just fine." A cool voice cut through the air. The man turned and found Bai Yuan standing there. "So Lord Baishan has arrived," he said lightly. Bai Yuan smiled. "I take it you expected me, Counselor Shu Wei." Shu Wei trembled, then let out a small sigh and peeled off his mask. The face beneath was indeed his. "I knew I couldn't hide from you, Lord Baishan," he said softly. Even as he spoke, there was no fear in his eyes, only a calm readiness. "After all, who would dare to provoke Lord Baishan without some backing?" he added with a charming, almost insolent laugh. At his side materialized a female demon. She had pointed ears, an exquisite face, and a lithe, elegant body. A slender tail swayed behind her, and every inch of her seemed to radiate a strange, dangerous beauty. Shu Wei's eyes went unbearably bright at her appearance. Any trace of restraint vanished. In his gaze there was nothing left but obsession, only the demoness remained. Bai Yuan rubbed his ear and sneered. "So the Succubus King shows their face. I wondered who could turn a top-level 83 pro into a demon thrall. Now I know." The Succubus King smiled, every motion deliberately seductive as they curved their body. "Pity," they purred. "This Devil King has no hope of seducing Lord Baishan." Bai Yuan slowly clenched his fists. "You can come if you want," he said coldly, "but if you dare threaten the Shenxia Empire, you'll pay for it." The Succubus King's smile widened, more dangerous than charming. Lord Baishan is very confident, they said, but I have no intention of sticking around. I'm only here to kill. Once that's done, I leave. That's your choice. Bai Yuan's eyes locked onto the Succubus King. He had already decided he wouldn't let them go easily. The Succubus King laughed softly. Lord Baishan, are you truly determined to see this through? Before Bai could answer, another voice cut through the air. With a flash, Ning Tairan appeared at Bai's side. A thunderous roar followed. Flames exploded outward, shooting up into the sky and turning night into a blaze. From the inferno came a booming declaration. Old man Ning, I will be your opponent. Flames parted as a demon stepped out of the sea of fire, its entire body wreathed in blaze and its eyes burning even brighter. Ning Tairan ground his teeth. The Flame Demon King, he spat. Clearly they had history. The Succubus smiled and said lightly, 1-on-1, fair is fair. A thunderous blast rang out, followed by a war cry. Kill! The lower-tier arena's shield shattered first, and a tide of demons poured through. The seasoned fighters were ready for a fight to the death. Lu Xianren, the sharp-eyed marksman, had already prepared. He loosed an arrow into the sky and unleashed his skill, Arrow Storm. In an instant, a storm of razor arrows rained down, explosions rocking the ground, and dozens of low-level abyssal monsters shrieking as they fell. One arrow struck an abyss demon, which howled in pain but did not die. No wonder. Lu Xianren was only level 29, while the stronger abyssal foes began at level 35, with many above 40. A pure white light suddenly filled the arena. Su Sheng, the Holy Light Mage, had appeared and activated his spell, Holy Light. A holy light spread out, bathing most of the station in a pure, blinding radiance. Within that light, the abyssal creatures fell silent, their shadows collapsing into nothing. The abyssal demon itself coughed up black smoke as if burned by an open wound. Holy light carries divine power, and to those things it is a natural nemesis. In an instant, the two of them moved as one, and hundreds of abyssal monsters dropped at their feet. Their performance was so outstanding it drew attention. High-ranking operatives from both the High Demon faction and the Demon Worship Society had already fixed their eyes on the pair and were charging in. A succubus glided forward, lips curved into a leering smile. Useless resistance, she purred. The struggle before death is simply delightful. The flesh of geniuses is the most delicious. I want to drag them back to the abyss and savor them piece by piece. She extended a long, damp tongue and licked her lips slowly. Bai Yuan, cool and unfazed, answered, We'll see about that. Prodigies always have a purpose, the succubus hissed, relishing the hunt. Before she could finish, the ground shook and the air trembled. With a thunderous boom, a tall tower erupted up outside the barrier, appearing suddenly as if summoned from the earth itself. Under the tower's pressure, the supposedly impenetrable barrier shattered like glass. God Shada is here, someone shouted. No, it's Meng Anwen. Another voice countered. Ugh, we fell for it, a third muttered as the succubus king's face flushed with alarm. In an instant, Shenshata crushed what remained of the barrier. He swelled to unimaginable size and burst into blinding brilliance. The god, Shenshata, became a burning sun that flooded Nanhong City with light. In that radiance, the abyssal demons and twisted beasts that had overrun the city vanished all at once. At the same time, every professional who had entered the solo competition disappeared as well. The catastrophe that had been about to strike Nanhong City was averted. The city snapped back to normal. Shenshata continued to draw in and absorb the fleeing demons and the displaced competitors, taking them away with him. No sooner had that happened than Bai Yuan let out a savage roar and launched himself forward. A pair of gauntlets materialized on his hands, and he threw a devastating punch. Space itself shuddered, and ripples ran outward. Bai Yuan's class was the Overlord of Divine Fist, and he had activated his signature move, Shocking Punch. The succubus king cried out in a strange, frightened noise and dared not meet the blow head-on. He recoiled. At the same time, Ning Tairan moved as well, unleashing his own skill, Fire Dragon. Flame poured forward, coalescing into a titanic dragon that lunged straight at the Flame Demon King. At the same moment, the two god-level combatants unleashed their attacks in unison. As the blows went out, the great teleportation array buried beneath Nanhong City flared to life. Dozens of figures bearing the Xiajing Academy insignia materialized in a flash. Every one of them was an elite, levels over 70 and several above 80, each radiating immense martial pressure. Their leader drew a long sword and slashed. The Blad's shockwave ripped up the earth, and the squad surged forward, heading directly for the crowd of the Demon Worshippers Association. The Succubus King saw them, and the realization hit like ice. Shenxia Empire had been prepared. Of course they had. Otherwise, God Shada would not have come in person, and the warding that had just been shattered would not have been broken so easily. They were losing this battle. "Retreat," the Succubus King shouted. No sooner had the order left her mouth than a low, menacing growl rolled through the air. "You can't leave." The Succubus King's face drained of color. The Flame Demon King, who had been locked in combat with Ning Tyron, gave a strangled cry, eyes wide with fear. The Shenxia Tower itself split, tearing open into two separate spaces. One area was reserved for top-tier professionals, the other was meant for lower-level workers like Lin Moyu. Each zone was split into 3 independent sections, and the levels were grouped in sets of 10, exactly the same format as before. A voice announced, "Solo run, start now." Chapter 187, "You are like this. Let no one play." Meng Anwen's voice rang through the entire Shenxia Tower. Lin Moyu had expected Bai Yuan and the others to act, so he hadn't rushed in. Bai Yuan and the others had already made their arrangements, waiting for the Abyss Demon to be sealed into the urn. Meng Anwen, a little surprised, treated the demon's assault like a solo challenge, which made sense. No matter how powerful a profession, you still had to go out onto the battlefield and slay the beasts. That was what it meant to be a professional. Before them, countless abyss creatures churned, as if locked inside a cage, thrashing and roaring in vain. Meng Anwen's voice continued. Level 10 professionals face 4,320 level 22 abyssal monsters. 432 professionals had passed the level 10 solo trial. They would confront 10 times their number in abyssal monsters, 4,320 foes in total, and these were all monsters, no demons. A massive hand appeared in midair and plunged into the throng of creatures from the abyss, scooping up a random handful, no more, no less, exactly 4,320 of them. It flung them aside like trash, and their levels plunged at once. These beings had all been empowered by the abyss and had originally been above level 30. Now their levels were suppressed down to 20. A system panel flickered to life, listing wave assignments for different player ranks. Level 20 professionals would face level 32 abyssal monsters and level 35 abyssal demons, 7,520 in total. Compared to the level 10 professionals, this wave contained a higher proportion of abyssal demons. Level 30 professionals would encounter level 42 abyssal monsters and level 45 abyssal demons, 4,990 in all. The same adjustments kept happening across the field. Some abyss creatures were forcibly reduced in level, while others were unnaturally elevated. Meng Anwen's control over the situation was uncanny. Everything felt calibrated to his will. Lin Moyu watched, stunned. "Is this the power of a god-tier combatant?" she breathed. "One day I'll reach god-tier as well," she added, excitement and determination brightening her voice. A concise rules message appeared. 1 point for killing an abyssal monster, 100 points for killing an abyssal demon. "Ready, go," the command came, and the battle began. Second rule, whoever has the most points is the champion. The rules were blunt and simple. Kill more than anyone else. "Turn on Legion mode," someone ordered, and everyone joins the same Legion. They linked up so skills wouldn't cause friendly fire. With that restriction in place, everyone could fight freely. Su Sheng gave Lin Moyu a provocative grin. "Lin Moyu, I want a rematch. Let's see which of us racks up more kills." Su Sheng faced Lin Moyu as Liu Shanren notched an arrow and steadied himself. "Su Sheng, your professional rank may be higher than mine," Liu Shanren said, "but I won't lose to you on the battlefield." Su Sheng's smirk widened. "We'll see about that," he shot back arrogantly. Liu Shanren snorted coldly. "Don't get cocky, you've been beaten before." Su Sheng's expression shifted. He let a short, low laugh die away and fell silent. A faint holy light flared in his palm as he prepared his abilities. The bow in Liu Shanren's hands hummed with energy, arrows forming along the shaft as he charged his skills. Around them, other players readied themselves. After a minute of tense preparation, Meng Anwen's voice came over the comms. Game start. The moment she spoke, the channel between the professionals and the abyssal rift opened. Swarms of abyssal monsters poured through, shrieking and surging forward. The abyssal monsters swooped through the air, surging toward the crowd. Their flight and incredible agility made them dangerous, especially for lower-ranked fighters. Su Sheng and Liu Xianren moved at the same moment. Holy light wrapped around them as Su Sheng called out, "Holy light," and unleashed his arrow storm. A hail of razor-sharp shafts tore through the sky. Su Sheng estimated his strike could wipe out hundreds of the creatures. With a few more volleys, no one would be able to match him. Liu Xianren, by contrast, had to build up momentum between casts and was comparatively weaker. As Su Sheng sent his attacks spiraling outward, he glanced at Lin Moyu in irritation. Why hasn't he summoned any skeletons? Liu Xianren's arrow storm was still impressive. Each arrow detonated on impact with a thunderous crack. Screams cut through the air as some abyssal monsters were shredded. Then a far deeper, utterly different blast drowned out the sound of exploding arrows. The ground trembled. Corpse burst. The shout and the force behind it were unmistakable. Su Sheng stared, stunned. Where had that come from? Who had used it? The explosion rolled across the field, and when the dust settled, a huge number of abyssal monsters lay dead. Su Sheng couldn't believe what he'd just seen. The power was far greater than his holy light. When he turned his head, he saw Lin Moyu standing there with his hand raised. It's him! Su Sheng's pupils shrank to pinpoints. Liu Xianren and several other professionals had noticed him too. The explosions were unmistakably Lin Moyu's work. He wasn't just a summoner, he was a mage as well, and his attacks hit hard. The skill alarm kept beeping as aftershock after aftershock rolled out. Abyssal monsters fell like grass before a scythe. Each thunderous blast shredded hundreds of them. Lin Moyu pressed forward. Everything inside his skill radius was obliterated. Nothing remained. The remaining abyssal beasts were still charging, the gap closing fast, so he raised his hand and unleashed another massive detonation. In less than 30 seconds, more than 7,000 abyssal monsters were wiped out. A handful managed to escape, but the unlucky ones who couldn't dodge were blasted into the air and swallowed by the starfish-like explosions. At that moment, skeleton warriors materialized beside Lin Moyu, throwing the rotting bodies of abyssal monsters like blunt projectiles. Lin Moyu's palm glowed red as he cast Slow Curse. The demons hovering in the air tried to flee, but their wings sluggishly beat against invisible resistance. The corpses closed in with terrifying speed. The skeletons' throws hit like a hail of heavy bolts and shattered weapons. Boom, 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 the corpses detonated one after another in midair. Several demons were torn apart by the blasts. The survivors, slowed by the curse, dared not press closer and frantically tried to put distance between themselves and the explosions. But this wasn't the open world. It was the inner space of the skeleton god Shada. How could Meng Anwen possibly allow them to escape? Soon they slammed into the boundary of the inner space and found nowhere left to go. On the ground, the skeletons continued launching corpses upward. Panicked, the remaining demons were engulfed in the detonations. In barely 3 minutes, the battle was over. Of the 7,520 monsters and demons, at least 7,500 had been killed by Lin Moyu alone. Everyone stared at him in stunned silence. You killed them all. What's left for the rest? The onlookers were speechless. Is this really a one-man show? It sure felt that way. Lin Moyu was doing everything. No one had expected his group attack skills to be so devastating, powerful enough to kill the abyssal demon in an instant, and that was only the tip of the iceberg. He could summon, curse, and strike in coordinated waves. The summoned skeletons could fight up close or pick off enemies from afar. The class was nearly perfect. Su Sheng swallowed hard. He couldn't be proud anymore, not when faced with this. After a long pause, he finally forced out, "What kind of class is this, anyway?" Liu Xianren laughed out loud. "About time you saw it. He's the real boss, the one in charge. Compared to Lin Moyu, my class is nothing," Su Sheng admitted, though he shot Liu Xianren a glare. He had no argument left. On Lin Moyu's shoulder, the sergeant's badge began to glow as a stream of military merit flowed into it. A third star appeared. Chapter 188, 3-star second lieutenant, opposed to demon worship. Every abyss monster killed gave 1 military merit. Lin Moyu had just slain more than 7,000 of them, which translated into over 7,000 merits. Add in the dozens of abyssal fiends he'd also taken down, those added another 1,000 or so. Even though they were fighting in Legion mode, Meng Anwen credited all of the kills to Lin Moyu since he'd landed the decisive blows and funneled every single military merit to him. In an instant, Lin Moyu's merit tally jumped by about 13,000. His total rose to 36,000, and with that he was promoted to a 3-star second lieutenant. Unfortunately, because experience in Legion mode is divided evenly among participants, Lin Moyu himself didn't gain much EXP from the fight and remained a little short of level 28. A silver insignia, the 3-star second lieutenant badge, appeared above Lin Moyu for everyone to see. Silver, 3-star lieutenant? Someone whispered. He's actually a 3-star lieutenant now. How many monsters did he have to kill to reach that? Another voice said in disbelief. At least 30,000 merits. This is insane. For a few moments, everyone seemed to forget everything else. The glare of the new rank badge was overwhelming, and all eyes were drawn to Lin Moyu. Su Sheng was stunned again. He quietly took off his badge, just a 1-star private. Next to Lin Moyu, a 3-star lieutenant, he felt like nothing. Liu Shanren laughed. So you're only a 1-star private? Shut up! Su Sheng snapped. Liu, grinning, flashed his badge. I'm 3 stars, 2 more than you. Get lost, Su Sheng shot back. I'll catch up to you eventually. Maybe you'll catch up to me someday, Liu conceded. But catching up to Lin Moyu? That might not happen in your lifetime. Su Sheng's voice dropped. Don't be so sure. I'm a holy light mage. I get stronger as time goes on. Lin Moyu might be ahead now, but that can change. If you've got nothing else to say, shut your stinking mouth, Liu retorted, delighted to see Su Sheng deflate. What, embarrassed? They traded barbs all the way down the line. Their own match had ended, but fights between the other teams were still raging. Lin Moyu's brow was drawn tight with worry. She had no idea what had happened out there. She didn't know where Lin Mohan was or what fate had befallen him. She trusted that Baishan had made the proper arrangements, but that trust did little to calm her. From what she'd heard, members of almost every team had been cut down by the abyssal demon. Some had suffered fatal wounds. In the arena, fatal damage usually only meant elimination rather than true death, and in Shenshata everyone said safety was guaranteed. Still, Meng Anwen had said nothing to reassure them, and his silence only sharpened their anxiety. There was a grim understanding among them. Only by facing life and death could a real warrior be forged. Minutes ticked by. Half an hour later, the world seemed to snap back into focus, and they found themselves outside the station again. The god Shenshata was gone. The lights inside the station burned just as brightly as before, and Nanhong City lay quiet and untroubled, as if whatever had happened a short time ago had never occurred. No, there are bodies in there, someone muttered, voice tight. Those look like members of the Demon Worship Association, another replied. There's more than one. Look, people in the sky. They turned and looked up. A cluster of figures hung motionless above the station, a group of silhouettes suspended in midair. For a moment, no one moved. The calm of the city and the cheerful glow of the station felt at odds with the sight below, the pale shapes of the dead inside and those dark forms hovering over them. Lin Moyu recognized at a glance the Xiajing Academy insignia on their clothing. Each of them radiated power. It was obvious these were the people who had cut down the demon worshippers. Bai Yuan floated a few feet above the ground. Everyone, I am Bai Yuan, he announced. Any professional in the field would have known the name. Within the Shenxia Empire, he was spoken of as the White God. To outsiders, he was known as Xia Shashan. Heads turned toward him, faces full of respect and admiration. Bai Yuan continued in a measured voice. We anticipated the Demon Worship Association's move and prepared accordingly. I'm pleased to see no one faltered. That is the mark of a true professional. We also turned the attack to our advantage and used it to conclude the singles competition decisively. The demons have been driven off and the traitors eliminated. He paused, then smiled slightly. Next, we will announce the winners of the singles competition. Across the low-level and high-level arenas, there had been 6 brackets in total, 6 single champions to be declared. Besides Lin Moyu, the champions of the 40-level bracket and the 60-level bracket were also from Xiajing Academy. Xiajing Academy taking 3 titles was a huge haul. The 50-level champion came from Aurora Academy. In total, 4 singles championships went to contestants from the Shenxia Empire. Only 2 titles went to outsiders. Bai Yuan waved his hand, and the appropriate prizes appeared in each champion's palm. The 3 champions above level 40 each received a mid-grade magic potion. Those below level 40 received basic magic potions. Bai Yuan added, "Tomorrow there will be a challenge. Anyone interested may participate. I can promise the rewards will be generous." With that, he turned and left. The event was finally over, and a collective sigh ran through the crowd as people began to mutter among themselves. "I didn't expect the whole thing had been arranged in advance," someone said, "and they actually used the Demon Worship Association as a pawn." "If you ask me," another replied, "those people from the Demon Worship Association were really stupid. It's easy to pick on a minor power. The Shenxia Empire actually dared to provoke them. If it doesn't mean death, what else could it be?" "Exactly. Who is Baishan? He's Shenxia's white god. Who would dare cross him?" Lin Moyu listened to the murmurs around him and let the words wash over his face. He already knew some of the backstory. A few days ago, several prodigies from the Shenxia Empire had been killed. This was why the crowd had gathered like this today. He had been used as one of the lures. He had suspected as much, but he hadn't expected the demon cultists to be so greedy as to try to snatch up every genius at once. The plan had been exposed. "Silence!" someone barked. At that moment, Ning Yi came barreling out of the crowd and threw herself into Lin Moyu's arms. "Are you all right?" he asked, pulling her close. She shook her head but managed a breathless smile. "I'm fine. You disappeared with the Abyss monster for a moment, then White God and the others broke out into a huge fight with the Abyss Demon King." "Let's talk as we go," Lin Moyu said, guiding her through the press. He headed toward the row of residences reserved for the high-level competitors. He needed to find Lin Mohan. Ning Yi gripped Lin Moyu's arm tightly. At first, the Succubus King and the Flame Demon King were sent up from the Abyss. Baishan, the White God, fought the Succubus King, and my grandfather took on the Flame Demon King. Shijing Academy sent out its guards, led by several deans, to deal with the members of the Demon Worship Association. When Lin Moyu heard Flame Demon King, she asked, "Is that the same Flame Demon King we encountered?" Ning Yi nodded. "Yes, they were both incredibly powerful, but Baishan and my grandfather managed to hold them down." Lin Moyu asked, "What happened next? Did you get all the hostages out?" Ning Yi shook her head. "No. Then someone even stronger showed up, someone who seemed more powerful than Baishan. The 2 Demon Kings tried to flee when he appeared, but they couldn't get away. The Succubus King used a spell to call up a cloud of black energy from the abyss. From that black mist, a giant hand wreathed in black flames reached out and struck at the remaining people several times. In the end, neither side could gain the upper hand. When the giant hand withdrew, it took the Succubus and the Flame Demon King with it. It even rescued Counselor Shu Wei," Lin Moyu realized inwardly. The Demon King really wasn't that easy to kill, and he hadn't expected Counselor Shu Wei to be a member of the Demon Worship Association. Chapter 189. Could it be that you already? In the Baishan courtyard, a pot of tea had just finished steeping. At Meng Anwen's thought, the steaming liquid rose and poured itself into her cup. Before she could lift it, footsteps sounded at the gate. Bai Yuan and Ning Tairan strode in. Meng Anwen's voice was quiet. "Solved?" Bai Yuan hummed, and without bothering about the tea, went straight to the point. "Damn it, I didn't expect Black Flame to move so soon. We couldn't hold the Succubus or Li Yan." Ning Tairan's mood was sour. If it weren't for Black Flame, Li Yan wouldn't have gotten away. Meng Anwen frowned. "What about the old man? Didn't he do anything?" Bai Yuan's voice dropped. "Too late. By the time the old man tried to act, the Succubus panicked. She sacrificed herself to open a conduit to the abyssal race and summoned Heihuo's hand." Meng Anwen absorbed that and murmured, "What a pity." Bai Yuan let out a heavy sigh. "It's a real loss. If this hadn't happened inside Nanhong City, I would have made him pay in blood. In Nanhong City, god-level fighters like them can't go all out. If they go all out, the whole city would be wiped out, maybe more than one, Bai Yuan said, forcing himself to hold back. Ning Tairan did the same, tightening his grip on restraint. Meng Anwen shook his head. If they decide to retreat, let them. They won't break through easily. If we get another shot, we'll go in together. Bai Yuan's voice was low. Walking away with 280 is still a gain. At least Xu Wei has been exposed. Ning Tairan's expression hardened. If they've managed to take Xu Wei, we need to be careful. There could be others under their control. A succubus's power is nothing to underestimate. They all knew what that implied. Xu Wei was well over level 80 and served as a counselor of the Shengxia Empire, true upper-class status. If someone of his standing could be compromised, who else might be compromised as well? Meng Anwen's jaw set. I'll investigate this thoroughly. The Empire needs to be sorted out. In the small courtyard, the three of them plotted, discussing problems that could ripple across the entire Empire. Outside, Lin Moyu arrived at the entrance to the high-tier arena. The place was alive with activity. The lights so bright the stands looked like daylight, and clusters of top-tier veterans were gathered inside, trading impressions about the recent battles. All anyone could talk about was what had just happened. From across the way, Lin Moyu saw Lin Mohan standing in the doorway. Lin Mohan saw her too and waved. "Sister, why are you waiting out here?" she asked, sounding a little surprised. Lin Mohan grinned. "I figured you'd come. Oh, this little girl is really pretty. Is she your brother or sister?" Ningyi's face went bright red. Caught off guard by his bluntness, she was too embarrassed to answer. Lin Mohan laughed softly. "Don't be shy about siblings. My younger brother's fine, he just doesn't like to talk much." Ningyi managed a nod. She wished the earth would open up and swallow her. That wasn't what she meant at all. She'd expected Lin Mohan to be quiet like Lin Moyu, but he was the opposite, so outgoing that it made her even more flustered. "Sister," Lin Moyu hurriedly gave her a sharp wink, signaling her not to bring that subject up. Lin Mohan returned the wink and got the message. "By the way," he said, changing the subject, "are you going to take part in tomorrow's challenge?" Lin Mohan shook her head. "I'm not joining. I was just about to tell you. I'm leaving." Lin Moyu blinked, then quickly understood what she meant. "A new mission?" "It's not a new mission," she said lightly. "Just grinding, studying my skills and leveling up." From her tone, it was clear their teacher expected high scores. Lin Mohan had been putting in a lot of effort to raise her level. Bai Yuan had told him to level up too, but hadn't pushed him nearly as hard. "How far along are you now?" Lin Moyu asked. Lin Mohan smiled. "Almost level 45. You need to hustle, little brother. Nit let me pull so far ahead you'll be embarrassed." Lin Moyu snorted. "You're forgetting. I'm the nation's top scholar." She waved him off. "Titles don't change the fact you're still only a 3-star second lieutenant. No matter how good a class is, level matters most. You'll understand once you reach 3rd rank," she said. "Anyway, like my sister said, we need to hurry up and keep leveling. No slacking," the older sibling added. "And don't forget about girlfriends. What's your name, little miss? My brother's a bit slow and doesn't even know how to introduce himself." Ningyi was still blushing. "Sister, I'd rather die," she stammered. "Ningyi, that's a very nice name," the sister laughed. "If anyone ever dares to bully you, tell me, and I'll sort them out. I've been roughing this guy up since we were kids. He wouldn't dare fight back." On the shore, the waves thundered against the rocks. The shimmering light barrier had vanished. The low-level and high-level arenas had been opened and merged into one. Today was Challenge Day, the final event of every professional tournament. It wasn't an official competitive match, but it drew more attention than the first 2 contests combined. This year's professional competition was unusual. Because of the influence of the Demon Worship Society, the solo events were handled differently, and the crowd wasn't very interested in them. Naturally, the spotlight fell on the challenge matches instead. The challenges themselves were run unlike past contests. Registration and competition were done on the spot, with no auditions. Any registered professional could sign up. Lin Moyu studied the challenge rules and remembered what Bai Yuan had told him. You must enter the challenge, and the higher your score, the better. Seeing the rules laid out, he finally understood why Bai had pushed so hard. The rewards were generous. For professionals under level 40, clearing the first round earned a shimmering primary skill scroll. Passing the second round brought a shimmering intermediate skill scroll, and winning the third round awarded a bottle of intermediate magic potion. If you manage to win the fourth round of the challenge, you're rewarded with 2 glowing intermediate skill scrolls. The prizes for the fifth round are even more spectacular, far greater than anything you can get from team or solo competitions. Naturally, the difficulty scales up accordingly. In the first round, you must face an opponent 5 levels higher than yourself. For example, Lin Moyu is currently level 27, so his first round opponent would be a level 32 professional. The opponent's class, Knight, Mage, or Archer, is selected at random. In the second round, the opponent will be 10 levels above you, and in the third round, 15 levels above. That means if Lin Moyu advances to the third round, he would be up against a level 42 veteran who has already completed the second job transformation. Historically, very few people have ever cleared the second round. Those who have made it through the third round can be counted on one hand, and nobody has ever completed the fourth. The 3-round limit had stood unbroken for centuries. Still, a few professionals confident in their skills were already clamoring for a shot. The first to sign up strode into the ring, a knight from Eagle Country. His information flickered onto the light curtain that framed the arena. Heroes, Knight of Sword and Shield, level 34. A moment later, the defender materialized across from him, another Sword and Shield knight, but clearly stronger. His banner read level 39. Sensing the other man's bearing, Lin Moyu murmured, "Soldier." Chapter 190. Shengxia Soldiers, number 1 in the world. Heroes' temperament was nothing like that of a normal pro. It was cold and lethal, the kind of edge that can only be forged in countless life-or-death battles. You don't get it from running dungeons. Only by facing abyssal monsters, even abyssal demons, again and again on the Yuan battlefield do you grow into that kind of warrior. And yet he was only level 34, not particularly high. It was obvious he had been living in the military. The posture, the confidence, the way he held himself. For real soldiers, level and combat ability are often out of sync. An ordinary player might have had a chance against a stronger opponent. Below level 40, a 5-level disadvantage can sometimes be overcome. People were debating whether heroes could pull it off. The moment Lin Moyu saw his opponent, though, he knew instinctively that heroes had no chance. The man in the ring was a level 39 sword and shield knight, wearing equipment nobody there had ever seen before, the military's distinctive golden gear. It wasn't ordinary loot, it was battlefield equipment, issued by the army. Compared to gold-tier gear of the same level, battlefield equipment isn't always the best choice for dungeon runs, but it's ideal for fighting. Its raw attribute bonuses may not be the highest, but the special effects can be plentiful, and battlefield sets can be tuned and customized for different classes and situations. The set on display, called the Yingzhan, was military issue, straight from the Shengxia Empire's vanguard. Heroes had been confident when he chose it. With his own skill, he thought, surpassing a level 5 opponent shouldn't be a problem. At worst, he'd at least get through one round. Seeing his adversary, that confidence evaporated. The Shengxia soldier opposite him carried himself with a rigid, solemn gaze that radiated pure killing intent. It rolled toward Heroes like an incoming tide and pressed down on him until his shoulders felt heavy. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Before the match had even formally begun, he had the sinking conviction that he was already beaten. The enemy's momentum only intensified. Heroes had no choice but to act. Skill. Charge. He hefted his shield and launched himself forward like a flash of lightning. The ring guard across from him did the same, raising his own shield and answering with a charging skill. The moment their attacks connected, a brilliant flash burst from the ring guard's shield. Skill. Shield bash, he announced. He canceled his charge at the last instant and converted it into a shield strike on impact. With a thunderous blow, Heroes was launched into the air. A shield strike hit far harder than a simple charge. In mid-flight, Heroes went dizzy as the shield bash's stun took hold. "It's over," Lin Moyu muttered. She could see he'd lost the initiative. Heroes wasn't nearly as strong as his opponent, and once he was controlled, there was no opening. The ring guard closed in again. He didn't use the charge skill this time, but he moved with terrifying speed. Before heroes hit the ground, the guard was already beneath him. Skill, flash slash! The knight's longsword glittered, sending a blinding streak of light up into the air. Heroes gave a pained cry as the blow sent him flying once more. The ring guard sprang up and, still airborne, slammed his shield into him again, maintaining and deepening the control. From that moment on, heroes didn't stand a chance. In less than 10 seconds, he was flung out of the ring, then stumbled back beneath the ropes after taking a savage series of blows. Even after the healers patched him up, his face was pale with shock. This wasn't just a matter of a few levels of difference. Right from the opening strike, he'd been denied every opportunity to fight back. He couldn't even activate his limit defense. He was locked down by crowd control and finished before he could react. Shenxia Empire soldiers. Absolutely terrifying, someone shouted. The dread inspired by the Shenxia troops settled into everyone's bones. The whole encounter lasted under 10 seconds, yet it felt breathtaking. Everyone in the arena held their breath, stunned by the dazzling display of skill. This is our Shenxia soldier, the strongest army in the world. Shenxia may be called second, but who dares claim they're first? The Eagle Country has some tough fighters, sure, but compared to our Shenxia army, the truth is right in front of you. This gap isn't something 5 levels can make up. Heroes' challenge ended in failure. The next contestant stepped forward, a level 46 elemental mage. She stepped into the ring like a picture, tall, poised, and beautiful. Platinum armor hugged her frame, and the robe slit to the waist revealed long, pale legs. Heads turned, whispers spread through the crowd. Her opponent was a randomly selected level 51 elf archer, an officer from the Shenxia Empire military. Clad in battle-worn gear and radiating a cold, murderous intent, he was the kind of ranged fighter sorcerers dread. The sorceress knew the matchup was unfavorable, but she didn't hesitate. As the horn sounded, she immediately raised a magic shield. No sooner had the shield snapped into being than a razor arrow struck it and detonated with a thunderous crack. Explosive arrow. The blast shook the barrier, and before the residual flames even died, another explosion rocked it. The rapid succession of impacts obscured her sight. She couldn't locate her attacker through the smoke and flashing numbers that danced across her vision. Then the archer opened fire in earnest. A rain of arrows hammered the shield, battering it savagely. For several tense seconds she held, but the onslaught was relentless. The magic shield finally failed and collapsed under the bombardment. The moment the magic shield collapsed, a sharp arrow streaked across the arena and detonated at the feet of the female mage. Silent arrow, her skills were instantly muted. She cried out as every ability went dark. The defeat was absolute and immediate. There was nothing she could do to fight back. The Shenxia soldiers had once again shown their dominance, leaving their opponents no opening. The crowd murmured in shock as one challenger after another was sent down. None of them could even get past the first round. Too difficult. Far too difficult. Lin Moyu had signed up as well, but it wasn't his turn yet. Su Sheng stepped into the ring. After 2 straight losses yesterday, he no longer carried the same unchecked arrogance. The pride was still there, but he had renamed it considerably. Su Sheng was a level 29, legendary class Holy Light Mage. His opponent was a level 34 Sword and Shield Knight from the Shenxia army. As the duel began, the arena was bathed in a blinding white radiance. Holy Light! Su Sheng cried, and a pervasive, spiritual attack filled the space, battering the knight with continuous damage. Suddenly, a cluster of blue light flared inside the white glow. The knight surged forward like a bolt the moment it appeared. Skill, ultimate defense. Skill, charge. He raised his sword and shield, opened his guard, and barreled toward Su Sheng. Su Sheng's face didn't change. He didn't take a step back, because rule number 1 when facing a knight is never give ground. He activated an ability. Ring of Light. A halo of holy radiance burst outward, designed to force opponents back. The knight answered with a shield bash at the same instant. The two effects collided with a deafening clang. The halo shattered under the impact. The knight was only shoved back half a step before swinging again. Skill, flash slash, he barked. Su Sheng met the strike with his own skill, Holy Light Shield. The magic barrier absorbed the blow, then exploded forward in a blast of holy force that drove the knight away. The knight staggered a few paces, but came at him once more. They locked into a deadlock, each hit met by a counter, each advance blunted. It had become a contest of endurance. If the knight couldn't kill Su Sheng before the defensive effects wore off, he would be the loser. The same danger hung over Su Sheng. He had no idea how long the Holy Light shield would hold. He had no choice but to pour every ounce of his strength into bolstering his Holy Light skill and keep pressing the knight. He had to shatter the knight's ultimate defense as quickly as possible. Chapter 191, Battlefield Skills, Round 1, Victory. When the white Holy Light faded, the sword and shield knight vanished from the arena. Only Su Sheng remained standing. Relief and joy flooded his face. His shield had just broken and he'd been on the verge of defeat. If 2 more seconds had passed, he would have lost. Instead, his opponent couldn't finish him off in time. Su Sheng had proved himself. Facing an enemy several levels higher, a powerful professional soldier, he'd held his ground. He accepted his prize with pride and walked off the field. Su Sheng loved his reputation and would never throw a fight. Before he left, he shot a quick glance at Lin Moyu, a silent challenge. Professionals rarely admit defeat, and Lin Moyu was especially stubborn. One challenger after another stepped up. After Su Sheng, the player named 587 failed in his match. Then Lu Shanren went up. He drew a level 34 mage. Normally archers hold an advantage over mages, so his crowd expected a good fight. Lu Shanren had gone up confident. He considered himself a legendary pro, someone who could even pass for a military mage. But the match lasted only a heartbeat. In under 5 seconds, he was blasted clean off the stage. The military professionals had reached an almost terrifying level of skill. Outside competitors simply couldn't keep up. Apart from Su Sheng, who eked out a narrow victory in 1 round, no one else managed to win. Spectators murmured in disbelief. Hundreds of matches had been fought, and only a single outsider had taken a win. The higher the rank, the worse the defeats became. At the top tiers, the gap in ability only grew. It was tougher than any competition anyone could remember. The Shengxia Empire had proven, in the most practical way, just how powerful its army and its soldiers were. When Lin Moyu finally stepped onto the stage, the room went quiet. From the audition onward, his name had been everywhere, and his appearance drew the attention of almost everyone present. He was a profession no one had ever seen before, wielding skills nobody recognized. Lin Moyu was an enigma, revealing himself little by little. Just when people thought they had him figured out, he showed something new. Last night had been another surprise. Lin Moyu had taken the singles championship again. In the level 20 bracket, he had practically carried the team by himself, and only then did people realize he had an incredibly powerful area attack ability. Everyone agreed that Lin Moyu's talents were extraordinary. Now that he was about to step onto the challenge stage, rumors and speculation spread through the crowd. It won't be a problem for him to clear the first round, one spectator said. Exactly. Even Su Sheng could clear the first round. Lin Moyu should have no trouble, another answered. I don't know about the second round, someone else cautioned. That's where it starts to get tough. I'd be amazed if he broke the record, a hopeful voice chimed in. But that's impossible, someone replied flatly. There hasn't been a successful multi-round run in hundreds of years. Only a handful have ever made it through 3 rounds. To reach 4 rounds, you have to beat opponents 20 levels above you. How could anyone pull that off? This year, the Shengxia army was absurdly powerful. Lin Moyu stepped into the arena, and moments later his opponent appeared, a level 32 mage clad in battlefield armor. When he caught sight of Lin Moyu, his eyes flickered, and then he rendered a crisp military salute. The kind of salute a subordinate gives a superior, rare to see among ordinary players. Lin Moyu returned it. The gesture set the crowd buzzing. What's happening? Is Lin Moyu in the military too? No, it's because his rank is higher. Wait, he's a 3-star second lieutenant? But he's only level 27. How is that possible? No wonder his combat effectiveness was so high. He wiped people out in an instant. The salute was only a formality. Once the match began, no one was holding back. Amid the murmurs, the duel commenced. A cluster of fireball. Liches leapt from the mage toward Lin Moyu, and 10 skeleton warriors and 10 skeleton mages materialized in front of him. One of the skeleton warriors stepped forward to meet the incoming spells, swung the great blade in its hand, and shattered a fireball into fragments. The fireball detonated, and a skeleton warrior sprang forward. The skeleton mage answered with his own spells. Lightning snapped through the air, and jagged bolts hammered down. A shimmering blue magic shield flared around the mage, taking the brunt of each strike and throwing back the worst of the energy. 5 lightning strikes landed in succession. The shield held until the 5th. Then it shattered. The mage, however, was already gone. He didn't fumble like a typical caster. He retreated with the light-footed grace of someone who seemed to have wind under his soles. When the skeleton warrior closed in, a ring of resisting flame burst from him and sent the skeleton flying back. He waited for the shield's cooldown and slapped another one up as soon as he could. Still, that wasn't enough to stop the onslaught. Gugeshi's forces kept pressing, driving him into a frantic dance across the ground. I couldn't help. I had no useful skills to speak of, let alone anything capable of threatening Lin Moyu. All I could do was watch. The skeleton mage's spells continued to pound the barrier, squeezing the space the mage had to maneuver. It looked as if he was about to be pinched from every side. Then, with a sudden heavy strike, his staff slammed into the earth. Boom! A column of fire ripped up from the ground. Skill. Flame cage. A roaring sea of fire erupted, hemming the skeleton warriors in and freezing them where they stood. The inferno surged and licked hungrily at the bones, turning each skeleton into a burning husk until they were consumed by the flames. Lin Moyu watched, frowning. This was an area attack with precise range control, a technique he had never seen before. When the mage had retreated a moment earlier, he'd left a trail of footprints on the ground. They weren't random. Each print pointed in a specific direction, and together they formed a pattern, a pentagram-like formation. It was a formation skill. Not even Lin Moyu, nor most veterans, had encountered anything like it. How could a level 32 mage possess such a powerful crowd-control group attack? That's a battlefield skill, someone nearby breathed. And he's managed to use it. What are battlefield skills? Someone else asked. Battlefield skills are exclusive techniques for soldiers, another explained. They have to be used in conjunction with battlefield gear. Each level and class has its own battlefield skills, the first speaker added. They're extremely difficult to master. Not every soldier can use them. And some battlefield skills require the coordination of multiple people and classes to use. Only then did many of the pros realize battlefield skills even existed. This wasn't something taught in academies. You only learned it on a real battlefield. One of the skills on display could control up to 10 skeleton warriors at once. Its damage was only average, but the control alone made it brutal. Still, control wasn't always enough. Silence used the skill to trap the skeleton warriors, but Lin Moyu still had a skeleton mage active. The mage's barrage never stopped. Lin Moyu's magic shield shattered under the onslaught, and a bolt of lightning struck him full on. His battlesuit flashed, absorbing part of the blow, but the impact still knocked him off balance and interrupted his own skills. The skeleton mage's spells hit him again and again. At level 32, trapping skeletons was already pushing Lin Moyu to his limits. Under the relentless assault, he was blasted out of the arena within moments. Round 1 went to silence. Chapter 192, the third round of challenges. This guy actually has defensive skills. He won. It was almost embarrassingly easy. Lin Moyu didn't even have to fight personally. He sent in a handful of skeleton warriors and a couple of mages, and the match was decided. The opponent was chased all over the arena by the skeletons. Even when he finally managed to use some impressive battlefield maneuvers to retake control, it was too late. A skeleton finished him off. There was a stunned silence, then a flurry of whispers. Everyone watching agreed on one thing. Lin Moyu's skeletons were ridiculously strong, far beyond what someone of his level should be able to produce. They weren't just a little better than his peers. They were on another tier. Professionals 5 levels higher than Lin Moyu had been overwhelmed by those same skeletons. Compared to Su Sheng, who'd scraped through his match with difficulty, Lin Moyu's victory looked effortless. Su Sheng had already admitted defeat. He'd lost thoroughly. On every count, he'd fallen short of Lin Moyu. The gap between them was glaring. There was more at stake than pride. Winning this first round granted a glowing primary skill scroll. Lin Moyu didn't hesitate. He chose to continue the challenge. The announcer cleared his throat, and the next opponent materialized on the ring. A level 37 professional, clad in heavy plate, a sword in one hand, and a massive shield in the other. He was a level 37 sword and shield knight, seasoned, imposing, the kind of fighter who'd seen more battles than most and paid for it with tired eyes. He didn't take the 10 skeleton warriors seriously. He only had to deal with the summoner, destroy the caster, and the summoned bones would vanish. There was no question what he'd do. When the fight began, he roared and activated his skill. Charge! A melee class had to close the distance. The skeletons formed a line in front of Lin Moyu like a hastily erected wall. The knight slammed into them. The clash rang out, metal on bone, with the knight's blows knocking 2 skeletons backward a few steps. At the same time, the impact shoved him off balance and sent him skidding back. He blinked, stunned. What force? He felt his stomach drop. His charge should have delivered a far greater impact, yet it was his own footing that gave way. Instead of crushing those summons, he had been shoved back and rattled. It was impossible to ignore the conclusion. The skeleton warrior's attributes far outclassed his. Don't rush in. The knight had already told himself that. He could never afford to recklessly clash with the skeleton warriors. He had to stick to the plan and protect Lin Moyu. But the skeletons and the skeleton mage were clustered tightly around Lin Moyu. Getting close would be almost impossible. A flash of light signaled another spell from the skeleton mage. The knight slammed his shield up and blocked, twisting to avoid the worst of it. He fell back, step by step, drawing the skeletons with him. One by one they pursued, easing their grip on the circle around Lin Moyu. When he'd pulled them far enough, the knight spun on his heel and launched his charge again. A crackling bolt of lightning streaked toward Lin Moyu. Shield held high against the mage's counterattack. The knight vaulted into the air, aiming to leap over the skeleton mage and strike Lin Moyu directly. It's useless. Lin Moyu's slight shake of the head caught him mid-leap. The knight's shield rose instinctively, catching another spell. Through the narrow opening in the defender's formation, he saw the corner of Lin Moyu's mouth curl into a smile. A cold dread prickled at the back of his neck. Suddenly, the whole situation felt wrong. The skeleton warriors in the distance vanished in an instant, and then 10 of them reappeared, forming a ring around Lin Moyu. The knight's heart lurched. He'd been tricked. Lin Moyu could recall his minions remotely. He tried to force a way through. If he could break the formation now, he might turn the tide. But Lin Moyu would not give him the opening. A red Li got flashed, and the knight felt the world tilt. Everything slowed around him while the skeleton's blades blurred into lightning. It was a curse. He realized it only then, when it was already too late. Blades struck before he could move. 1 wound, 2, 3, in an instant nearly 10 cuts opened across his body. The skeleton mage's assault followed immediately. He scrambled to summon the last of his defenses, an emergency healing, but as the thought formed, Lin Moyu was already outside the ring, finishing the assault. The healing spell faltered, the curse held, and the knight's resistance collapsed. The defeat was absolute and instantaneous. With the only dignity left, he gave Lin Moyu a formal military salute. Lin Moyu returned it. Lin Moyu wasn't just a 3-star second lieutenant on paper, he was actually powerful. For him, taking on a level 37 opponent while he was only level 27 felt like child's play. The second round ended in an easy victory, and he was rewarded with a glowing intermediate skill scroll. He decided to press his luck and continue into the third round. The prize this time was an intermediate mysterious potion, far more valuable than the scroll. It would add 2,000 points to every attribute, which for any class is a huge leap. With 4 attributes, that's an 8,000-point increase overall. The improvement would be obvious. If Lin Moyu could win the third round, he'd tie the record, an almost unbelievable feat for a level 27, low-tier class challenging top-tier opponents. A level 42 archer stepped into the ring. Clad in a platinum battlefield suit, his presence was overwhelming. The gap between high-level and low-level players was suddenly, unmistakably clear. After the second stage, his attributes have risen dramatically. His skills are stronger, he can begin to learn powerful advanced techniques, and, most important, once you reach level 40, you can equip platinum-grade gear. Platinum battlefield suits are even stronger than ordinary platinum equipment. A professional above level 40 can steamroll lower-level opponents. Given all that, nobody thought Lin Moyu would have an easy time of it. If he gets through the third round, do you think he'll try the fourth? Someone asked. Hard to say, another answered. The reason no one ever clears the fourth round isn't simple. What do you mean, not simple? I've heard the fourth round is different from the first three. Something's off about it. Otherwise, someone would have made it by now. Nobody succeeded in years. Everyone who'd been through the event knew what the fourth round was like. Brutal, unpredictable, almost impossibly hard. Lin Moyu himself didn't know the details yet, but he expected he'd find out soon enough. He was curious, too. If the first three could be overcome, why had nobody ever passed the 460th round? What was the real difficulty waiting in the fourth? The archer was a level 42 military man, a second lieutenant with 3 stars, the same rank as Lin Moyu. He said nothing. His eyes were cold and precise, like a pair of lightning bolts fixed on Lin Moyu. The fight erupted. Several arrows shot into the air at once. Skill. Tracking arrow. A shaft of light curved through the sky and bore down toward Lin Moyu. At the same moment, the skeleton mage's spell lunged forward and reached the archer. The archer fell back fast, then split into 3 phantom bodies as he dodged. Skill. Lunge clone. The skeleton mage's spell lost its lock. Lin Moyu had misplayed earlier and allowed the skeleton mage to act freely. Now, the tracking arrows slammed into him, bang after bang, each impact like a falling boulder, a dull, deafening force that drove into his chest and made everyone wince. Most people watched and thought the same thing. A level 27 player, no matter how skilled, cannot withstand the direct onslaught of a level 42 professional. He should be finished. The bone armor on Lin Moyu flashed as it took the hit, completely absorbing the strike. That's a defensive skill, someone gasped. It's like a mage's magic shield, another voice added. If you want to attack, you attack. If you want to defend, you defend. A class that can do both, it's unbeatable. That armor looks amazing, murmured others, awed. The archer, momentarily dumbfounded, froze mid-shot. Everyone realized with surprise that Lin Moyu actually had defensive abilities, and they were formidable. Archer and Assassin are the 2 fastest classes. At that moment, one of them blurred into 3 afterimages and dashed around the ring. A summoned skeleton warrior gave chase, but it couldn't keep up. The archers were just too nimble. Most of the skeleton mage's spells glanced off harmlessly. Only the lightning attacks landed any blows. Even those barely scratched them, because the archer's platinum gear shimmered and absorbed much of the damage. Lin Moyu noticed something else. Every time an attack connected, the archers' bodies twisted in an odd, unnatural way, and that distortion deflected most of the force. Between their evasive movement and superior equipment, the mage's arsenal did almost nothing. As they circled, the archers kept peppering Lin Moyu with arrows. His own agility was nowhere near theirs. He knew dodging was hopeless, so he planted his feet and stood his ground. Even with his skeleton armor, he couldn't fully resist the hail of blows. Then the arena flashed red. A chill ran through the air as a new effect manifested. Skill, slow curse. The archer and his clone suddenly slowed, and the skeleton mage took advantage of the opening to strike. Both clones blew apart at once. The archer's body convulsed from the impact, but then he lifted his bow, high, and the weapon began to glow. A shaft of sunlight shot upward from the string. The slow curse shattered. A system prompt flashed. Skill, Purify. Lin Moyu stared. Purify? Isn't that a healer's skill? Then he remembered. The archer's ability came from the platinum-grade weapon in his hands. Many platinum-tier items carry skills. Most of them were wielded or forged by veteran fighters, so they come with unusual effects. He hadn't expected this bow's bonus to be a purification skill. Of course, a weapon's Purify wasn't as potent as a true healer's spell. It couldn't dispel the most powerful curses. But it was more than enough to remove a slowing effect. Lin Moyu tried to cast Slow Curse again, but the weapon's purification was still active, and the curse had no effect. The archer weaved among the skeletons, never actually attacking them. His aim was fixed on Lin Moyu alone. Explosive arrow, shock arrow, silent arrow. One skill after another erupted from his bow, a relentless barrage directed at Lin Moyu, but the bone armor held. Stuns, silences, none of it pierced the defense. The shell absorbed every hit. Spectators began to whisper. The skeleton armor was terrifyingly resilient. After so many successive attacks, it still remained intact. This was the work of a level 42 veteran. If it had been a level 27 professional in his place, they'd have been cut down in an instant. What a defensive skill, someone muttered. Can anyone find a weakness in this class? Another asked. So far, there isn't one. It's nearly perfect. Right now it looks like a stalemate. No one can hurt the other. And I don't know how Lin Moyu is supposed to break it, someone added. The archer said nothing, only continued his pattern. Attack Lin Moyu, dodge the counterblows, attack again. He believed that the tortoise-like shell couldn't hold forever. Should we summon more skeletons? Or, someone speculated, trailing off as they watched the duel continue. Lin Moyu hesitated for only a moment, then made his decision. He fixed his sight on the fleeing archer and felt the lock click into place. Flames sparked between them, skill soul flame. The archer let out a blood-curdling scream. He wavered, took 2 unsteady steps, and collapsed to the ground. Skeleton warriors surged forward, followed by volleys from the skeleton mages. The archer thrashed wildly, trying to get away. Desperation drove him to an avatar skill, split himself into 3 in an attempt to transfer the target off his real body. When his eyes met Lin Moyu's, they were full of terror. Crowds nearby murmured, "What happened?" "No idea." "I saw it. Lin Moyu used a skill." "Yeah, that single-target lock-on skill. It came out of nowhere. Accidents like that always happened without warning." Lin Moyu exhaled softly. He'd expected this. Soul Flame wasn't just powerful, it was viciously painful. Aside from Shuyan, he couldn't think of anyone who could take it without crumbling. Outside, the battle was heating up. Now that he'd committed to using the skill, he wasn't going to hold back. He slowly raised his palm. Fire licked across his skin. The air tightened. Boom, boom. 2 explosions rolled out in quick succession. His flames struck the 2 illusory clones, detonating them one after the other. The remaining semblance of the archer's bravado shattered. "Bad luck," someone muttered from the sidelines. "You picked the wrong master to mess with." The frightened archer's split forms vanished, and only the harsh echo of the soul flame remained. Lin Moyu took aim at the archer's true body once more. The moment he did, an uncanny chill spread through the arena. A raw, involuntary fear rippled over the man standing across from him. Flames flashed. Screams tore through the air. The challenger collapsed to the ground, curling up in terror. Skeleton warriors surged forward and unleashed their powers in unison, while a skeleton mage added a barrage of spells. In a single exchange, the man was overwhelmed and abruptly vanished from the ring. Below the platform, the medics rushed in. They patched his wounds and healed him quickly, but the memory of what had happened didn't fade. When the man looked back at Lin Moyu, there was still unmistakable terror in his eyes, a look that sent a cold shiver through anyone who saw it. His fear spread through the audience. Spectators all around trembled. Surrounded by his skeletal minions, Lin Moyu only seemed more terrifying. With the 3rd round won, Lin Moyu claimed the intermediate mystery potion. He had now tied the record for consecutive successful challenges. Without hesitation, he chose to continue. The 4th round awaited, a stage no one had conquered since the professional competition began. People had nearly forgotten the rules of the challenge in all the excitement. Under a roar of expectation, a single knight strode into the ring, clad in field armor. Sword and shield knight, level 45. At first glance, that didn't look so fearsome, only 3 levels higher than the previous round. Is this the 4th round difficulty? How could no one get past it? People wondered. Their doubts were short-lived. One after another, 4 more professionals stepped into the ring. A level 45 Battle King, support, a level 45 Archer, a level 45 Mage, and a level 45 Assassin. The 5 of them formed a textbook party. Only then did the crowd understand why no challenger had succeeded in the 4th round. It wasn't a one-on-one test at all. A single player had to face a full team, and each of those professionals was 18 levels above the challenger. How could anyone win under those odds? Even a god wouldn't stand much chance. No one believed Lin Moyu could pull it off. After all, he was only level 27 and completely alone. No party buffs, no healer, no way to rely on support. No matter how skilled his class might be, it was impossible to match a coordinated team of level 45 experts. Kid, not bad at all. You made it to the 4th round. I'm proud of you. The team's lead knight nodded at Lin Moyu with genuine approval. Though his rank was only 3 levels above the archers, his presence was on a different plane entirely. He carried himself like a cavalry officer. The sergeant's badge on his shoulder was silver, 9 stars gleaming in the light. A 9-star second lieutenant, practically 1 step away from a colonel. He looked every bit the battle-hardened veteran. Nobody in his squad was weak. The lowest among them was still a 5-star second lieutenant. They all cast admiring glances at Lin Moyu, not for anything flashy, but simply because he himself wore a 3-star second lieutenant insignia. In their eyes, anyone who had slain demons was a comrade in arms. Thanks, Lin Moyu said. His voice was unusually generous. Since stepping into the arena, he'd been almost silent. But I'm not here to win today, he added. As the match began, the War King's backing started to amplify his combat presence. Lin Moyu raised his hand slowly, and in an instant, a wind tore through the arena. The gust howled, sweeping over the spectators and stirring the banners until the whole place trembled. Chapter 194, Surprising Net Worth. I keep challenging everyone in the auditorium froze, then rose as one in shock. Eyes went wide, mouths fell open, disbelief spread through the crowd like a chill. This is... what? Someone stammered. How can there be so many? Another whispered. Is this some kind of hallucination? On the arena floor, 100 skeleton warriors stood in rigid ranks, 50 skeleton mages aligned behind them, an entire army of bone and rune, unnervingly orderly. The knight facing them swallowed hard. His hand on the sword hilt was slick with sweat. The War King's support skills that had been bolstering him snapped and sputtered under the weight of that sight. Nothing he had could comfortably handle numbers like this. Each skeleton's attributes weren't weak. A single skull soldier was comparable to one of them. A dozen or even 20 could be fought through with effort. But 100? And with 50 mages in the rear, it was overwhelming. How could they possibly engage? One by one, weapons clattered from the hands of the seasoned fighters watching from the stands. The sound echoed across the arena like a grim punctuation. Su Sheng murmured under his breath, eyes locked on the formation. This isn't just a few summoned minions. He's pulled up an army. He's hiding that deep? Lu Xianren was left speechless. Unbelievable. At Lin Moyu's command, the skeleton war dynasty surged forward. 100 skeletal warriors filled half the arena, cutting off any route of escape. The skeleton mage struck first, colossal elemental spells crashing down like tidal waves. Skill, group protection, the knight bellowed, and a towering shield blossomed to encompass them all. The War King's adjutant began chanting blessings to reinforce their powers. Archers knocked glowing arrows while the spellcasters prepared their area of effect attacks. The assassin had already vanished without a trace. They'd spent their lives facing abyssal demons. The shock left behind by the ambush was short-lived. Instinct took over. They snapped into combat mode, determined not to give up without a fight. After all, nothing's decided until the first blow is traded. A pentagram array flared under the mage's feet as the archers' arrows ignited along their shafts. Thanks to the group protection skill, the knights held steady against the skeleton mage's devastating barrages. Meanwhile, the skeletal infantry surged forward, unleashing their own deadly abilities in waves. The knight's shield warped and vibrated, on the verge of splintering. He gritted his teeth, every nerve stretched to the limit. If you can't hold it any longer, hurry up, he shouted to the mage and the archer. A few seconds later, the skills detonated. Skill, meteor fire, destroys the world. A huge bolt of fiery rain dropped and smashed into the skeleton warriors. At the same time, the archers unleashed their own ability. Skill, arrow storm. It was the same technique Lu Xianren used, only wider and more powerful. A torrent of arrows swept across the arena, engulfing Skeletor and Lin Moyu alike. The razor-sharp shafts detonated on impact. Explosions rippled through the field. The volley was brutal. The skeletal warriors held, but the skeletal mages were struck down one after another. Their injuries weren't obvious to the others. Only Lin Moyu, their master, could feel them so clearly. Fortunately, he could still endure it. The blasts kicked up smoke and dust, blotting out the view. A faint curve formed at the corner of Lin Moyu's mouth. Arrow Storm had other uses. Boom! A dagger suddenly appeared behind him. He lunged with a powerful thrust. The bone-returning armor flared white, its plates shocking bright as they took the blow and stopped the strike dead. It was the vanishing assassin who had attacked Lin Moyu. Unfortunately for him, the armor proved far stronger than expected and completely blocked the stabbing blow. Lin Moyu had been waiting for the assassin's disappearing trick. As the red glow fell, the attacker was hit with a curse, and his true form was exposed. Several skeletal warriors materialized beside him. They didn't charge to strike. Each one simply closed in and wrapped around him, seizing his arms and legs to prevent any escape. 10 lightning-type skeletal mages turned at once and rained down bolts of electricity. The assassin screamed as the lightning struck. Then his body shimmered and blurred. He slipped out of the skeleton's grasp. Stealth in the void, Lin Moyu thought. The high-level post-40 skills were similar to those used by the Phantom Warlord. Void stealth couldn't erase a curse. It could only help someone get out of immediate danger. A flash of fire sprang into Lin Moyu's palm. Another scream cut through the chaos, this one even more heartbreaking than the first. The assassin, who had been shrouded in a blur of motion, revealed himself again, hunched over and shaking. The pain had gone beyond the physical. It seemed to reach into the very soul, something a normal person could not withstand. A skeleton warrior raised its blade to finish him off, but suddenly an energy chain shot down from the sky and yanked the assassin away. The skeleton's attacks missed, and one after another they were cut down. The knight triggered his skill and pulled his teammates back to safety. Even after they regrouped, the assassin remained curled in a ball, trembling uncontrollably. The King of War rushed up and began treating him. The wounds could be healed, but the agony could not be taken away. "What's happening?" the knight asked, voice tight with worry. "It hurts," the assassin muttered, barely coherent. His skill, it hurts. It was the soul flame. Its torment was unbearable. Whether its use was allowed in the arena or not, the damage was real. The enemy's protective barrier finally broke. The mage lifted his staff, and with a roar, a huge ring of fire surged outward. With a thunderous blast, the remaining skeleton warriors were hurled aside. System: resist the ring of fire. When wielded by professionals above level 40, its power is something you can't even compare to lower ranks. This time, the blast sheared through at least 30 or 40 skeleton warriors, carving a gap straight through their lines. An arrow streaked forward and detonated among the bones. Then chains erupted from the ground, snaring the dozen or so skeletons up front in an instant. Skill: chain arrow. The mage archers poured everything they had into controlling the trapped skeletons. It felt like the real fight had only just begun. They all knew it was impossible to slaughter every skeleton. Their only realistic option was to take Lin Moyu out of the fight. Several of them exchanged looks and hatched a plan. A red light fell across their heads. Skill: slow curse. Lin Moyu cast the curse again. Last time it had failed because the knight's skills had provided protection. This time there was no shield. Red shackles snapped onto everyone's temples, everyone except the assassin. As the slow took hold, the skeleton mage's assault intensified, and the party began to be overwhelmed. The knight bellowed, "Remove the curse, now! Mage, shield!" Amid the shouting, the party's mage strode forward. The knight's shield flared as he threw it up, covering the 3 people huddled behind him. The shield could only protect that many. The mage layered a magic barrier over himself and became an additional human shield. The War King's assistant's staff pulsed with light. Beams of radiance climbed into the air from several sources and shattered the curse. Skill: group purification. "It's the platinum weapon skill again," someone shouted. Lin Moyu frowned. The War King's support class could apply buffs and heal, but unlike the Elder, it normally lacked crowd control and curse cleansing abilities. Apparently the weapon itself carried a built-in group purification effect. Aside from the lack of control spells, a War King's support was otherwise remarkably well-rounded. The question was whether it would be enough. The skeleton mage concentrated its attacks for a round. The mage's protective barrier was aura, addy cracking. The knight had taken heavy damage. His shield arm trembled violently as he struggled to hold the line. Once the curse was broken, the War King's assistant shifted immediately into group healing, knitting wounds and steadying the defenders. The skeletons that had been scattered surged forward again as the ring of encirclement began to close. "We can't wait. Open a path. Rush them," someone shouted. The mage nodded. His staff flared as he called the spell. "Blast Pillar!" Wind elements gathered and exploded outward, coalescing into a huge blue mesh that swept down the road. The concussive force blew every skeleton aside, clearing a path with its shockwave. The knight charged through the gap behind the pillar, activating his charge. The archer, the recently revived assassin, and the mage followed close behind. Only the King of War's assistant hung back at the rear. The wind pillar knocked the skeletons aside, and the line of attackers aimed to crash into Lin Moyu herself. "It won't do you any good," Lin Moyu said calmly. A flare of fire flickered across her palm, and the knight who had been surging forward suddenly let out a scream. The knight's charge was cut off mid-run. He staggered and fell to his knees. The archer reacted fastest, leaping forward to cover him, but thunder cracked above them. Several bolts of lightning slammed down and the archer was blasted out of the air. The knight trembled. He knew it was over. They had rushed straight into a swarm of skeletons and were already surrounded from every side. "Ultimate defense," the knight roared, grasping for one last stand. A scream of pain cut through the air, and his vision flared red as the skeleton warriors activated their abilities one after another, furious strike after furious strike. The opposing archers, assassins, and mages fell in an instant. When the flurry ended, only the knight remained standing. The skeleton mage hurled a blast of fire, and with the warriors closing in, the knight's resistance finally crumbled. After the fight, the 5 players were brought into the ring and given medical attention while the audience watched with admiration. Lin Moyu stood victorious. He was the first professional player ever to clear 4 rounds of the challenge. His name would be written into the history of the tournament forever. These prizes were the stuff of legends. Some of them could even be written into textbooks. The 4th round rewards produced 2 glowing intermediate skill scrolls. Including what he'd already earned, Lin Moyu now had 2 glowing basic skill scrolls, 4 glowing intermediate ones, and a sealed vial containing basic and intermediate magic potions. The total value of his haul surpassed that of most professionals. "I will continue the challenge." Lin Moyu's words cut through the crowd and fell like a silence over the hall. Conversation died away as everyone stared at him, stunned by his determination. They had finally done it. Someone had cleared the 4th round. No one had managed that before, and nobody had even expected a 5th round to be set, much less tried it. The rewards for a 5th round hadn't been announced. The challenge itself was practically unheard of. Still, Lin Moyu stepped forward and asked to continue. Bai Yuan had told him that the higher the challenge, the better, and Lin Moyu trusted him. When he finished speaking, the arena fell silent. 2 long minutes passed before the officials answered. A figure suddenly materialized in midair, clad in an ornate robe and leaning on an intricately carved staff. His voice rang out with authority. "The 5th round of challenges will begin in 3 minutes. Prepare yourselves. Rewards: 1 bottle of advanced magical potion and 1 scroll of a radiant advanced skill." The official's gaze lingered on Lin Moyu with obvious admiration. Lin Moyu's eyes brightened at the announcement. The advanced potion, usable only by those who have completed 3 rebirths and reached level 70, would boost total attributes by 200 million. It was an extraordinary prize. Advanced skill scrolls for Flash were almost mythical. Getting one was rare, and the odds of learning an advanced skill were tiny. Everyone knew how valuable a high-level Flash skill scroll would be. Lin Moyu clenched his fists. He had to win this reward. Under the crowd's expectant eyes, the 5th round of challenges began. The arena array flared to life, and a group materialized on the field. Level 50 Paladin. Level 50 Rare, Elder Shilling. Level 50 Elemental Mage. Level 50 Shadow Mage. Level 50 Pyromancer. Level 50 Elf Summoner. 6 characters, all level 50, all rare classes, an entire mage team. "I'll go, it's the mage team," someone called out. A level 50 mage team was precisely the kind of lineup least worried about single-target melees. Lin Moyu's in trouble now, another voice said. They're all built around area attacks. No amount of skeletons will save him. Don't forget, the Shadow Mage has that other title, someone added. Master of Field Control. Yeah, the first replied. They've got tons of crowd control skills. The team the Shengxia Empire sent was clearly built to counter Lin Moyu's skeleton army. 2 heavy hitters, an elemental mage and a pyromancer, handled powerful area attacks. A shadow mage specialized in mass crowd control. Elder Schilling's presence was the real force multiplier. His buffs amplified a mage's power even more effectively than a prophet's, and the elf summoner's one signature trick, resetting a skill's cooldown, was enough to guarantee his value in the group. Seeing the lineup, Lin Moyu knew how hard this fight would be. He ran through possible responses in his head until a single viable strategy emerged: suppress their firepower. The enemy's AoE assaults were dangerous but manageable. The real threat was their control abilities. If the Shadow Mage landed a group control, his skeletons would be crippled and everything would fall apart. Lin Moyu shaped his countermeasures around that insight, the only approach that offered a chance of victory. The 6 opponents regarded him, prepared to engage. They'd been summoned as guardians and hadn't expected to be facing someone as low level as a 27, but orders from the upper ranks left no room for underestimating a target. They would not be careless. Everyone held their breath. As the battle began, Lin Moyu slapped the back of his hand, and a suit of skeletal armor snapped into place around him. At the same time, 100 skeletal mages materialized all across the arena. Fire erupted from them, spells of every variety launched at once. The display stunned the 6 of them. The knight hoisted his shield and shouted, "Defense!" He activated group protection. A translucent barrier rose to enclose the 6 of them. Spells struck like a tidal wave, bending and rippling the shield. The knight let out a relieved breath, then barked, "Get your buffs up! Mages, attack!" Elder Schilling began casting frantically. Magic Power Enhancement, T, Magic Inspire, Elemental Boost, Rapid Casting. One after another the buffs fell over the party, each one amplifying the mage's power. Under those blessings, their offensive capability climbed dramatically. The elemental and fire mages responded instantly, unleashing spells in rapid succession. They didn't need the long casting time typical of a level 40 caster. Their attacks were almost instantaneous. Meteor Fire, Destroy the World, one thundered. Rain of Fire, another followed. The Shadow Mage fixed his gaze on the distant skeletal mages. His staff flared in his hand as he invoked Cloud of Sleep. A drifting, soporific cloud seeped forward, answering his command. When Lin Moyu sprinted toward him, the skeleton mage vanished in an instant. Spells thudded into the ground behind Lin Moyu, but he kept running. The whole arena erupted in confusion. "What is he doing?" someone shouted. "Isn't he a mage? Why is he charging off by himself?" "There are knights and summoners on the other side," another voice cried. "Is Lin Moyu rushing to his death?" "Did you notice there were more skeleton mages this time than last round? At least 100, a third spectator added. "Exactly. Last round he still had things he wasn't showing us." Everyone was stunned. No one had expected that Lin Moyu hadn't used his full strength before. Nobody knew how much he was holding back. In a blink, he closed the distance to the skeleton mage, and the enemy's attack and control spells faltered. At the elf summoner's side, a white summoned beast appeared, a warhorse with a tiny horn, clearly inferior to Mo Yun's sacred unicorn. Lin Moyu's eyes lit up as if he'd found the solution he'd been waiting for. He pressed forward, and the skeleton mage reappeared, directing another round of concentrated fire at him. Last round, the knight's memory mask had only trembled. This time ripples ran across his shield like waves on water. Anyone watching could tell at a glance that the shield was about to give. The Shadow Mage raised his staff and pointed it at Lin Moyu. Ability, Silence. A flash hit Lin Moyu, but the skeleton armor flared and nullified the control effect. The Shadow Mage immediately cast a second single-target control, Hypnosis, but it was just as useless. The skeleton armor was immune. The Shadow Mage's face went pale. Ineffective. "Don't waste time on the skeleton. Go after the summoner," the knight barked. The Elemental Mage and the Pyromancer turned their spells on Lin Moyu, hurling everything they had in desperation. The bone armor absorbed the blows, but its glow was fading fast. Powerful as the armor was, their opponent was a level 50 professional in a full set of platinum gear. Their skill power was overwhelming. The attackers concentrated their fire again, and the shield finally shattered. The elf summoner's summoned beast let out a hiss. A pale light washed over everyone. Summoned beast skill, reset. All skills have been reset. The knight's group protection skills are available again. The elemental mage, the pyromancer, and the shadow mage, all their skills have reset. Group protection, the knight shouted, and a shimmering shield snapped into place around the team. Someone nearby shouted, "That's the reset ability of the elf summon." Aside from a few special abilities, most skills can be reset indefinitely. No cooldown, another player added. That changes everything. It multiplies the team's survivability. Lin Moyu's face went grave. With the opponent's buffs refreshed, he couldn't mount an effective counterattack. They could strike at him without pause. He had fallen into a purely defensive, damage-absorbing position. The skeleton warrior couldn't be resummoned for the time being, and if the enemy managed to seize control of any of his summons, there would be no way to reclaim them. That would make them open, live targets. Then another large area spell lit the sky. A rain of fire blasted down toward the spot where the skeleton mage had been standing. Lin Moyu snatched the skeleton mage back into storage in an instant. The fire still smashed into the ground where it had stood. A level 50 AoE like that would be catastrophic to a summoned skeleton mage. He couldn't afford to lose it. With the skeleton mage gone, the pyromancer immediately switched targets and focused all his attacks on Lin Moyu. The bone armor creaked, its light fading. It was on the verge of collapse. There was only one option left. Lin Moyu finished his spell, sprinted to the other side, and summoned the skeleton mage again. The moment it appeared, the skeletal figure locked onto the defensive barrier and began hammering it. Lin Moyu reached the edge of the shield and met several staring eyes. He gave a faint smile, then casually pressed the back of his hand against his chest. A new layer of bone armor rippled into being, and the shell that had been about to shatter flared back to brilliant life. "I'm going in," someone cried. The knight watching opened his mouth in surprise. He had assumed Lin Moyu's defenses could only reset after a cooldown. He didn't know the bone armor had no cooldown at all and could be refreshed at will. To defeat Lin Moyu, they either had to break that armor in a single, decisive strike or grind him down until his mental reserves were exhausted. Lin Moyu placed his hand on the defensive barrier and held it there. "What is he going to do?" whispered the onlookers, uncertainty rippling through them. Skeletons swarmed up in an instant. Lin Moyu unleashed frenzied strike the moment they formed, chaining the blows with no more than a second between each use, then sheathed his weapon the instant the last strike landed. The shadow mage didn't even have time to react. The protective shield trembled. The cavaliers understood at once. "He's charging! Stop him!" they shouted. The summoned beast howled, and the enemy reset their cooldowns. The pyromancer detonated a counter to the fire ring, and Lin's bone armor flickered as its shock immunity failed. The shadow mage slammed his staff into the ground. Swamp! Mud exploded up beneath Lin Moyu's feet, swallowing half of one boot. A skeleton leapt in and battered him, grappling him hard. At the same moment, the elemental mage unleashed a blast pillar. A column of wind slammed into Lin Moyu's body. His bone armor took the hit and didn't break. Under the relentless assault, the armor dimmed again, losing some of its sheen. Then the next second, Lin Moyu felt another blessing wash over him. "It's a monster!" "What kind of perverse skill is that?" The paladin roared, and his shield exploded with a deafening bang. He slammed a new barrier into place as fast as he could. When the magic flared and the shield reformed, another figure was suddenly standing inside it. Lin Moyu, a faint smile playing at the corner of his mouth, had finally arrived. "Xiao," he murmured. Lin Moyu shoved his way through the paladin's shield. A few heads turned, surprised. He was a mage, not a frontline fighter. Why had he broken into the barrier? Did he mean to hack with a sword? Did he secretly have warrior training? A pale shimmer ran across the shield as the skeleton mage continued its assault. The paladin held the barrier in place and was rooted where he stood. The summoned beast, an immense unicorn the size of a warhorse, charged straight at Lin Moyu, slamming into him with a thunderous impact. The skeleton armor flashed. The strike carried real force. At the same time, the elementalist and the pyromancer bore down on him together. Lin faced the onslaught. A red layered as he spoke the words of his spell, Slow Curse. With a low, humming vibration, the movements of 6 people and the beast all faltered and slowed. It's a curse, the paladin realized, panic flaring across his face. Paladins could break curses. He exploded outward in a brilliant burst of light in a desperate attempt to dispel it. Elder Selene was already chanting, hands tracing circles as she prepared to lift the affliction as well. Before they could recover, a dense wave of skeleton warriors sprang up around them. The instant they appeared, they had everyone tightly surrounded. Skeleton warriors crowd them from all sides and even overhead. The moment they materialize, they unleash their skills. 4-6-3, they chant as the spells go off. The ring of fire explodes against them, and the blast tears through the ranks. Many skeletons have their abilities interrupted and are sent flying. Still, in less than half a second, Lin Moyu summons another wave. He never releases them all at once. He's guarding against countermeasures like the fire ring, so whenever one wave is broken, he fills the gap. Black clouds roll in, and a huge number of skeletons freeze and collapse into a deep sleep. Ability, Cloud of Sleep. At last, the Shadow Mage's crowd control shows its worth. The summoned beast roars, rears on its hooves, and a column of water bursts from the ground, launching more skeletons into the air. Their attacks impact the beast as it strikes. Whenever a hole appears in the swarm, Lin Moyu spits out another batch. The moment each skeleton appears, he has it fire its skill. Whether it will hit or not is secondary. Use first, evaluate later. The paladin saw what was happening, but he couldn't leave his post. He had to keep the group protection spells up, and skeleton mages outside were still hammering them relentlessly. "This guy's dangerous. I've never seen a mage like him," someone shouted. "What kind of tactic is this?" When a skeleton warrior lunged, a flare of fire erupted in Lin Moyu's palm. Skill, Soul Flame. The summoned beast let out a howl as the spell hit. The effect was brutal. Few players, monsters, or summons could shrug off Soul Flame. Still, the skeletons kept raining attacks down on it. The level 50 summon had exceptional vitality. Even surrounded by more than a dozen skeletons and hammered by repeated strikes, it wouldn't drop after just one skill. A small grin crossed Lin Moyu's face. The stronger the summon's life pool, the better. He tried to pull the summon back and heal it, but he couldn't fully protect himself in the chaos. If it hadn't been for Elder Selene's timely healing, he would have been taken out already. Lin Moyu chose to close the distance and turn the long-range duel into close combat. The Shadow Mage responded by spamming control skills, seizing command of a large number of skeleton warriors. Under that control, they were like frozen stakes on the field, immobilized and useless. In the blink of an eye, half of the skeletons fell under control, and the situation seemed to stabilize. The paladin felt something was off, and turned to see Lin Moyu attacking the summoned beast. "Watch out for summoned beasts," he shouted. He didn't understand why Lin Moyu would do that, but figured there had to be a reason, just as there had been a reason Lin Moyu had barged in earlier. By the time he called out, it was already too late. The soul flame flared again. The summoned beast screamed and collapsed. Boom! A thunderous blast rolled across the arena. Corpse explosion had appeared on the field for the first time. The detonation gave off no visible light, but it was blindingly intense. The paladin was thrown back. His shield vanished in an instant. When he hit the ground and came to his senses, he realized all of his teammates had already cleared the ring. He was the only one left inside. 170 skeleton warriors and 100 skeleton mages were staring at him. The paladin gave a wry smile. What else could he do? This was a contest, not a panic. "You're strong," he called to Lin Moyu, gave a thumbs up, and stepped off the ring. The team of level 50 mages had been beaten by a single person. The arena erupted into a deafening ovation. Everyone stood to applaud. Lin Moyu had treated them to a breathtaking display. One level 27 professional fighting alone against a team of 6 level 50 mages. It was the kind of performance that would be talked about for years. The mage who had been hovering above the ring looked at Lin Moyu with growing admiration. "Good show, boy. Here's your prize. With a grand sweep of his hand, a purple gold potion bottle and a gleaming purple scroll sailed into Lin Moyu's palms. A high-level potion and a rare skill scroll, two priceless rewards. Lin Moyu glanced up and nodded, "Thank you." He briefly considered whether to keep accepting challenges, but his communicator buzzed in his hand. A message from Bai Yuan. "Accept it when you see it." Lin Moyu slipped the potion and scroll into his pack, saluted the hovering mage, and stepped down from the ring. He didn't continue the challenges, and no one begrudged him the decision. 5 consecutive wins had already been an unprecedented achievement. News of Lin Moyu's victory spread quickly through the human world. Ning Yi practically bounced over, grinning. "Moyu, you're amazing." Lin Moyu, still elated from the win, laughed and ruffled her hair. "You did great too." Ning Yi tilted her chin up proudly. "Of course, I have the best eye for people. If I didn't, I wouldn't have picked you." They left the arena together and didn't wait for the next match. For Lin Moyu, the professional tournament was finished. In truth, she might not even have come if Bai Yuan hadn't asked. Her real purpose wasn't to compete so much as to find Lin Mohan. In the end, the trip had paid off. Not only had they located Lin Mohan, they had also picked up a number of high-grade items and gained plenty of practical experience. Whether for future dungeon runs or fighting demons, the lessons learned were a valuable accumulation. All in all, it had been a worthwhile trip. A figure descended and landed in front of them, the same mage who had presided over the competition. His breathing was controlled, restrained, but Lin Moyu could sense the power behind it. This man was clearly a top-tier professional, well over level 80, though not quite on Bai Yuan's level. Lin bowed politely. "Senior, how may I help you?" The man chuckled, a look of appraisal in his eyes. "Hello, Lin Moyu. My name is Jin Peng." Jin Peng, one of the 12 great figures of the Shenxia Empire, a heavyweight on par with Xu Wei. Lin Moyu had seen plenty of people with that kind of status. It didn't faze him. Still, he kept his expression respectful. "Lord Jinpeng, what brings you here?" Jinpeng smiled. "You're a student of Xiajing Academy, correct? This year's national champion?" When Lin nodded, Jinpeng continued, "I'm also a visiting professor at Xiajing Academy, and I would like to take you as my disciple, if you're willing." He wasn't talking about a simple teacher-student arrangement. The word he used implied the traditional master-disciple bond, the same kind of relationship Lin had with Bai Yuan. Lin Moyu bowed slightly, but kept his expression calm. "Thank you for your kindness, Master Jinpeng, but I already have a teacher." Jinpeng's eyes widened in surprise. "Oh, who is it?" At that moment, Lin Moyu's communicator chimed. He smiled faintly and answered, "It's my teacher." Jinpeng leaned forward, visibly curious. He had already decided Lin Moyu was a rare talent, stronger even than the top fighters from Xiajingzi Mansion, and he wanted to know who could have trained someone like him. "Quick, let me see who was lucky enough to teach you," he urged. The link connected, and Bai Yuan's voice came through the speaker. "Xiaopeng, are you trying to poach my student?" Jinpeng froze, then stammered. "Lord Baishan? It's you," Bai Yuan snorted. "Lin is one of my students in the 3.8 cohort, so don't try to recruit him." Jinpeng's face fell. How could he possibly compete with Lord Baishan? He hastened to backtrack. "If I'd known he was Lord Baishan's student, I never would have come." "You go back and brief those men, keep everything about the Lin youth strictly confidential, and don't let anyone irrelevant see it. Rest assured, Lord Baishan, I've already kept it well hidden. In fact, the Shenxia Empire always treated promising talents that way. Geniuses were valuable and vulnerable. There had been assassinations before, so the Empire had strict protections. Sensitive files could only be accessed by high-level officials. Still, none of that mattered once Councilman Xu Wei turned out to be a member of the Demon Worship Association. All the security measures had become meaningless decorations. Bai Yuan went on, "Get back to your duties. After the competition, come to us. Old Meng and I have something to ask of you." Jinpeng's expression hardened. He immediately understood that Bai Yuan wasn't calling them over for anything trivial. When Bai Yuan asked for them, it was rarely without purpose. "All right, after the competition I'll go with them to find you," Jinpeng said. Once Jinpeng had gone, Bai Yuan turned to Lin. "You've gotten awfully popular lately. Come back as soon as you can. I have a new task for you." Yes, teacher, Lin replied. Chapter 197. It seems a new god-level powerhouse is being born. When Lin Moyu returned to Xiaojing Academy, he drew the eyes of almost every student on campus. His reputation had swelled so large in recent days that famous hardly covered it. People were talking about him across the country, even around the world. Everyone knew who Lin Moyu was and what he had accomplished. Xiaojing produced champions every year. It had never been short of prodigies. But someone as complete as Lin Moyu was rare. He had shattered the old challenge record and set an entirely new one, something that had never happened before. That alone set him apart. As he walked the campus paths, students followed him with their gazes. Wherever he went, crowds formed, and people from ordinary students to those in different colleges and departments hurried over to greet him. They wanted to show their respect and admiration. Everyone agreed on one thing. Someone like Lin Moyu, barring some unforeseen tragedy, was destined to become a major figure in the years to come. You've even turned into a white god. Someone like that deserves respect. Ning Yi had expected Lin Moyu to be awkward. She rang with a silvery laugh as she teased, "Stinky girl, you ran off quickly." Lin Moyu felt embarrassed and out of place. The dormitory was spotless and unfamiliar. He'd only been here a handful of nights since enrolling, and there were no traces of his life yet. He climbed up to the 10th bunk, sat down, and took out a basic magic potion. He drank it in one go. Warmth spread through his body like a current, seeping into his limbs and bones. His whole being tingled as his attributes rose. As someone in a magic-oriented profession, his other physical stats had always been low compared to his mental power. At level 27, his strength, agility, and constitution were only 510 each, while his mental power was a huge 2,700, higher than the other three combined. The primary potion boosted his physical attributes by 200 points. For him, that was a significant improvement. If my attributes could match the skeletons, it would be powerful, Lin Moyu muttered. It's a pity the comprehensive increase talent only boosts skills. It doesn't affect my base stats. As he thought, a host of skeleton warriors and skeleton mages materialized inside the dormitory. A cold wind swept through, dropping the temperature noticeably. Undead summons carried a gloomy aura that set his teeth on edge. He skimmed their status information. A level 27 skeleton warrior, total attributes 22,500, but base attributes only 750. Skeleton mage, spirit and 1,500, and the other three attributes only 340. Lin Moyu whispered to himself. Without a god-level talent that increases base attributes, these skeletons weren't particularly strong. With such low basic stats, they were weaker than an ordinary professional class. Their only real advantage was sheer numbers, enough to overwhelm by quantity. Still, as a hidden profession, Necromancer had to be more than that. Some classes were weak early on and became powerful later. Perhaps this was one of them. Maybe at higher levels the new skills will change, he told himself. Even without natural talent, this is still the strongest profession. Lin Moyu had absolute confidence in his path. He still remembered the image that had appeared when he changed classes. A tide of countless skeletons so dense it looked like a scourge overwhelming the world. Even a dragon would be cut down by an army of skeletal warriors. One day, he would grow into that power. Those images had pointed the way. They showed him what the future of his profession could be. That night, he went over his skills and fights in his head, taking stock of gains and losses. He replayed every encounter, confirming his conclusions. In hindsight, if he had stopped holding back and unleashed the soul flame outright, victory would have come more easily. But that skill exacted a terrible price. He had seen how painfully it affected other professionals, and he preferred not to use it unless it was a matter of life or death. Later, in Master Bai's courtyard, Lin Moyu sat at the tea table and poured tea for Bai Yuan and Meng Anwen with careful, respectful motions. Bai Yuan, pleased to be waited on by his students, smiled as he accepted the cup. "You have to admit, this student is easy to like," Meng Anwen said lightly. "You did well this time." "It can't be that good," Bai Yuan muttered. "No one's ever passed 5 rounds. His smile faded. "Can we drop the compliments?" Meng Anwen only smiled. "Honestly, you only made it through 3 rounds back then. As a man, you'd never admit it." Bai Yuan's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue, but contented himself with a dry cough and changed the subject. Kid, get to level 30 as fast as you can. When you hit 30, I'll take you somewhere. Lin Moyu nodded. Okay. You should stay on campus for the next few days, Bai continued. Use the dungeon hall if you want a level. And be prepared. This time the attention on you is huge. Wherever you go, people will be watching. He wasn't exaggerating. Already, Lin felt eyes on him almost everywhere, like celebrities from his previous life, always surrounded by crowds. The constant attention was uncomfortable. You don't need to worry about being noticed, Bai Yuan said. The real danger is not knowing who among us means you harm. In recent years, prodigies across the empire have been picked off one after another. You have to be careful. At least at the academy, there's relative safety. He offered Lin Moyu a few more pieces of advice. The concern in his voice made it clear how much he cared. Lin Moyu felt the warmth and left reassured. As soon as he was gone, Meng Anwen opened his eyes and looked at Bai. Where are you going to take him? Bai's answer was casual, as if it needed no explanation. Of course I'll take him there. If you don't, how can you call yourself a proper mentor? Meng Anwen's tone turned grave. Aren't you worried he'll be in danger? You only went there yourself after reaching 2nd rank. Bai shook his head. I waited too long already. The sooner I get him there, the more benefit he'll gain. Meng shrugged. Suit yourself. He is your student, after all. Bai showed no hesitation. Don't worry. He doesn't talk much, but he's sharp. It won't be easy to kill him. He still bore the Hall of Valor's sigil, the mark that lets a player be resurrected after death. The dungeon hall quieted the moment Lin Moyu stepped out of the teleportation array. Conversations died away into a hum of whispers. It's Lin Moyu. He's back. I knew he was strong, but not like this. Looks like a new god-level player has appeared. People clustered together, eyes fixed on him. Even seasoned professionals who had completed the 2nd turn watched with deference. Rumor had it that even a level 50 military mage team, enough to beat most other groups, would be outmatched one-on-one by him. Some players expressed envy. A few grumbled that he was the kind who hands out points so others can carry him through a run. But most simply stood in awe. Strength commanded respect here, and strength was the final word. Lin Moyu walked into the dungeon hall under the weight of everyone's attention. Lin Moyu, you're back! Shu Han stepped up to me with that trademark lazy smile. I hadn't expected to run into someone I knew so soon after returning. There was a calmness about her that put people at ease. She looked like an ordinary student, but her bearing set her apart. I suspected she came from a well-off family. Still, for some reason she spent her time taking odd little jobs just to earn a few points. It didn't make much sense to me. Are you here to do another mission? I asked quietly. Yeah. Shu Han returned the smile. You? Clearing books, leveling up, I said. I can recommend a dungeon for you, she offered. There's a fee. 100 points will do. I transferred 100 points to her. Perfect timing. I just earned another 100. Come with me, classmate Lin Moyu. Shu Han flashed a bright smile, turned, and led the way, toward the dungeon. A slow-rotating vortex hung over the dungeon entrance, occasional tongues of flame snaking out from its center. Heat and sulfur-laced smoke rolled off it in waves, casting the ruined archway in a wavering, hellish light. This was the level 32 instance, Vulcan Palace, its presence warning any would-be intruders that danger and fire waited beyond the threshold. Shu Han recommended the Vulcan Palace dungeon to Lin Moyu. It was a level 32 instance, open to players between levels 27 and 37. On the surface, it looked like an ordinary dungeon, and it only offered 2 difficulty settings, normal and nightmare. For any dungeon above level 30, the entry fee was 500 points and the reset fee 2,500 points. The cooldown after attempting it was 120 hours, a full 5 days. Shu Han, who was careful about collecting points, had her reasons for the recommendation. It looks like any other dungeon, she said, but there's something different about this one. Plenty of dungeons here get lots of challengers, she continued, but very few people pick the Vulcan Palace. If you compare its clear time with other dungeons at the same level, the difference becomes obvious. Lin Moyu pulled up the clearance record for the Vulcan Palace. The best time was 8 hours, 32 minutes, and 15 seconds, set 5 years ago by a team from Qianlong Academy. A nightmare-level dungeon taking more than 8 hours to clear was abnormal. Nightmare dungeons of comparable level rarely stretched beyond 6 hours. The record time had stood untouched for 5 years. Shu Han smiled lazily and said, "You figured it out. This dungeon is actually one of the 5 elemental dungeons. What most people know are the 4 elements: wind, water, fire, and electricity. But there's also an element of light. Each element has its own instance, and if you're lucky, you can get that element's fragments. If you manage to collect fragments of all 5 elements, you get a special reward." Shu Han knew his stuff and went on to explain why this dungeon was so brutal. This one is a fire element realm. As soon as you enter, you continuously take fire element damage, which puts enormous pressure on the healers. On a 6-player team at nightmare difficulty, you often have to give up 1 DPS slot and bring a second healer. That cuts your damage output and makes the run much slower. The dungeon doesn't become easier just because you're doing less damage. The lower your output, the more dangerous it gets. Even with 2 healers, a run can still wipe if it's not executed perfectly. In the past, a few students had waited too long to retreat and ended up dying in the dungeons. The rule was simple. Higher difficulty brings higher experience. Shu Han thought that, given Lin Moyu's skill, the tougher challenges shouldn't be a problem. That's why he pointed her toward the dungeon that offered the most experience for their level. Lin Moyu listened and grew confident. If it paid off, she figured the 100-point cost would be worth it. "Are the other elemental instances here?" she asked, sweeping her gaze across the great hall. Hundreds of portals dotted the room, some large, some small, blurring together at first glance. Shu Han pointed toward one of the vortices where pale water sometimes welled up, the air around it biting with an unnatural chill. "That's the water element dungeon," he said. "It's rated level 37, so you're not allowed in yet." Then he indicated another entrance where the sound of rushing wind leaked from within, sending loose banners fluttering. "And that one's the wind dungeon," he continued. "Its difficulty is sitting at level 42 now, but the minimum entry requirement is level 37. Once you meet that, you can go in. Most people don't even enter those runs until after their second job change, when they're already high-level professionals," Shu Han said. "The fire element and light element instances aren't available here," he added. "As for the exact locations, Lin Shuai will have to find those on her own." A sly smile flickered across Shu Han's face. He still hoped Lin Moyu might set a new record. "Thanks, sis. I'm going to run the dungeon now," Lin Moyu replied. He selected Nightmare mode and dove into the instance. Ning Yi had messaged him after she got home yesterday. She'd said she had some family business to handle and would be away for a while, promising to contact him when she returned. Dee sounded hurried, likely she'd been caught up arranging something important before leaving. Families like Ning Yi's, full of top professionals, had entire training systems to groom the next generation. Although Ning Yi was well known at the academy, she didn't follow the academy's path entirely. She relied on her family's methods. Lin Moyu realized he was in a similar position. He'd never taken any of the academy's formal courses. In the academy, most people spent more time in the dungeon hall than in classrooms anyway. Bai Yuan had never wanted him to follow the usual path of learning and leveling up. Much of the knowledge Lin Moyu needed was incomplete on paper. Bai insisted he pick up the rest in actual combat. They entered Vulcan Palace, a level 32 dungeon flagged at nightmare difficulty. Heat assaulted them the moment they crossed the threshold. The cavern walls were licked by living flame. The whole place felt like a furnace. A single molten bridge spanned to the far bank, and rivers of magma flowed beneath it. From time to time, pillars of fire shot up and erupted into the air like brilliant, deadly fireworks. Even with his bone armor glowing as it deflected the worst of the heat, Lin Moyu had a dread that it wouldn't hold out for long. Vulcan Palace resembled an elemental secret realm, but it was pure, nothing here but raging fire. The very presence of the dungeon bathed him in the fire element. He could feel it gnawing at him continuously. The bone armor helped, but the attacks never stopped. As long as they stayed inside, the fire would keep coming. That relentless pressure made the healer's job especially brutal. Even when no monsters were nearby, Someone always needed attention. Burns to cauterize, stamina to restore, wards to reinforce. In a place like this, a support couldn't simply wait for combat to start. They had to patch everyone up between the ceaseless assaults of the environment itself. He hadn't even bothered to summon skeleton warriors or skeleton mages. He hadn't engaged the monsters at all. And yet they were already coming out to meet him. The bridge itself was made of living flame. Every step Lin Moyu took sent tongues of fire licking at his boots. It felt like a gauntlet of blades and flames. Any ordinary class would have needed to heal several times just to get across. The span wasn't long. At its end, two creatures waited on the far shore. Lava and fire elementals, each about 3 meters tall and armed with a massive flaming club. They paced beside the bridge, and the moment they spotted Lin Moyu, they reacted. With a single swing, each hurled a ball of fire at him, like a mage's fireball. Lin Moyu didn't bother to dodge. He braced himself with bone armor, letting the shots strike the hardened shell, while his detection skills swept over the two elementals like a breeze. Fire Elf, Enhanced Elite Monster, Level 32, Power 10,000, Agility 3,000, Spirit 4,000, Physique 10,000, Skills, Flame Attack Traits, Immune to Fire Element Damage, Physical Damage reduced by half. The Fire Elf's slightly boosted strength and physique put its total attributes at 27,000, exactly what you'd expect from a level 32 Enhanced Elite. It's a pure fire elemental, which explains the immunity to fire damage. Like other elemental creatures, its physical damage vulnerability is reduced. All physical attacks only do half damage. Lin Moyu had fought elementals before, so he wasn't surprised. He muttered under his breath, "So we can't use corpse explosions here. If corpse explosions are blocked, the clear speed will drop a lot." Shuhan probably didn't know that when she recommended this dungeon to them. Lin made a mental note to ask her later which instance she thought was stranger. It didn't bother him too much. It's fine if the experience per person is lower, as long as there are enough monsters. The crucial thing is being able to get corpses to use. Luckily Wang is here. With him around, if more of these show up, they'll be safe. The 500-point entrance fee was already spent. It wasn't worth backing Aomo T now. A flame from one of the flame elves struck Lin Moyu's bone armor. The fire blossomed against the plates like a burst of fireworks, but the skeleton-like armor flared with a silvery white light and completely absorbed the hit. "Not bad," Lin Moyu muttered, estimating the fire elves' attack power. Skeleton warriors began to appear, racing across the bridge in a line. They swung oversized blades at the flame elves, but as they ran, the flames from the enemies leapt onto them. Almost instantly, their skulls and bones were engulfed. They became blazing skeletons, covered head to toe in fire. Lin Moyu's elemental resistance passive kicked in. It boosted his elemental defenses by 300%, cutting elemental damage down to 1/3, so the blazing skeletons looked terrifying, but their flames did him little harm. Their stats were solid, and their appearance was frightening, but the actual damage wasn't high. A dozen of them swarmed around the two flame elves, hacking away. Kill a level 32 flame elf, exp Tane flame nucleus. As expected, when the flame elves died, they didn't leave corpses. They dissolved into living fire and scattered as elemental wisps, leaving only the flame nuclei behind. Chapter 199, Dungeon Upgrade. Activate Hell difficulty. After dispatching the two flame elves, Lin Moyu reached for the skeleton warriors to recall them. He hesitated when he realized he couldn't. Each skeleton was wreathed in raging fire, continuously taking damage. Because they were flagged as in combat, they couldn't be pulled back into his summoning space. The burns weren't severe, but they were relentless. The fire elemental effect would take a long time to wear them down. 10 hours might not even be enough to burn one to ash. He refused to leave them to slowly perish, so he made a decision. If he couldn't bring them home, he'd make use of them. 16 skeleton warriors fanned out and surged ahead to clear the path. Lin Moyu instructed them to attack any monsters they encountered. The dungeon's beasts were level 32. Individually, they couldn't defeat the skeletons unless they had crowd control abilities. Surrounded, though, they were finished off in moments. With his skeletal vanguard pressing the advantage, Lin Moyu pushed deeper into the dungeon, making the best of a bad situation. Flame-enshrouded skeleton warriors scoured the map, cutting down monsters as they went. Soon the layout of the dungeon became clear. Lin Moyu found himself in a cave whose ceiling, walls, and floor were all wreathed in fire. 4 identical entrances ringed the chamber, and each one was guarded by a pair of flame elves. From the outside, they looked exactly the same. Anyone among the other 480 players would have to test them one by one to find the right path. For Lin Moyu, however, it was trivial. He split his 16 skeletons into 4 teams of 4 and sent each group into a different entrance to scout. Information came back almost immediately. The rooms beyond were swarming with monsters, not just flame elves. Killed level 33 lava boulder, 660,000 EXP, obtained flame nucleus. Killed level 33 flame-winged snake, 660,000 EXP. Killed level 34 flame lizard, 680,000 EXP, obtained flame nucleus. One message after another scrolled across his display as his skeletons reported kills and loot. Lin Moyu moved in swiftly to follow them. After downing a basic magic potion, all his attributes jumped by 200, and his movement speed increased noticeably, leaving him well prepared for whatever the fiery caverns held. When I stepped into the cavern, a monster corpse caught my eye. Lin Moyu's face lit up. Most of the denizens here were fire elementals without flesh, but some of the creatures had physical bodies. Even though more than half of their life force dissipates when they die, the bodies remained, and a corpse is easy to deal with. On my order, the skeleton warriors stopped slaughtering and went back to dragging the monsters. The rattling of their bones echoed through the lava cave as they lured creatures out one by one, then sprinted back toward me with their prizes. The mental map overlaid in my mind showed it clearly. I had drawn at least hundreds of monsters this time. Each one would yield a good chunk of experience. My gauge was already climbing fast. I was within striking distance of level 28. Just a few more waves like this, and I'd make it. The skeletons clicked and clacked as they returned in formation. A red glow gathered in my palm. Skill, slow curse. The curse's red was deeper, truer than the flame red all around us. I released it. The monsters being dragged hit the effect and suddenly seemed to move through molasses. Every step stretched out, their motions slowed to near stillness. The skeleton warriors spun around and unleashed their abilities. "Crazy strike," one of them shouted. The attack slammed into the lead monster, tearing it apart with a scream. Killed a level 33 flame-winged snake. Experience 6/6 snake. Lin Moyu followed immediately, spreading his palm. "Corpse burst," he commanded. A violent explosion rippled outward, detonating corpses in every direction. The blast felled dozens more. The dungeon trembled, lava spat up and rained down, and the ground fire flared brighter. The whole instance shook, as if me hidden mechanism had been triggered by his spell. The monsters that had been charging toward them howled. Their auras flared and intensified. For a moment, Lin Moyu lost control. Skills cascaded off one another as corpses detonated in rapid succession. The sequence of blasts roared like a relentless symphony, shredding enemies apart until bodies were torn to pieces. Then something set his teeth on edge. The surviving enemies were growing stronger. It made no sense. These were undead, their life force supposed to be weakened now that the elemental fire was dissipating. Yet their power kept rising. Lin Moyu frowned. Whatever was happening in the dungeon, it wasn't behaving like any ordinary encounter. At first, a 600% boost to the corpse explosion skill was more than enough to wipe out monsters of the same level in a single blast. That had been true at the beginning. But now the monsters no longer died from one detonation. The first few times they needed 2 explosions. Then it climbed to 3, 4. It was as if their resistance to corpse bursts was increasing. The dungeon instance trembled more violently with each failed kill, shaking like an earthquake. Magma spat, and the fire element in the air thickened until it felt almost solid. Outside the dungeon, the vortex at the entrance suddenly belched flames. The burst of heat and light startled the veteran adventurers gathered nearby. "What's going on? Why is it spewing fire like that?" "Wait, this is a copy of Vulcan Palace, isn't it?" "Vulcan Palace is one of the 5 elemental dungeons," someone answered. "They say you can sometimes get elemental fragments from them. Collect all 5 fragments and combine them. You get some pretty serious benefits. Don't be ridiculous. That's just a legend. No one's ever actually gotten one. Guys, come look. Why does Vulcan Palace have a new difficulty level? The news rippled through the dungeon lobby like a shockwave. Vulcan Palace had stood here for who knew how many years, and for as long as anyone could remember, it had only 2 settings, normal and nightmare. Now, out of nowhere, a third option had appeared, hell difficulty. Shuhan grinned, eyes bright. I knew he'd do it. As the dungeon hall's controller, Ning Tyron held supreme authority over the place and had access to every log. He was the first to notice the anomaly in the Vulcan Palace instance. After pulling up the record, he confirmed what everyone was whispering. Lin Moyu was inside the dungeon, and he had somehow triggered hell mode. Unexpected. He actually did it, Tyron murmured. Does it really drop elemental fragments? Someone else asked. Is the legend true? Ning Tyron knew the rumor better than most. The only way to get elemental shards was to activate hell mode. They would only ever drop in that difficulty, and even then, it was a matter of luck. The new difficulty might be real, but whether it would reward anyone with those fabled fragments was another question entirely. To trigger hell mode in a dungeon, you have to wipe out an enormous number of monsters in a very short time, enough to fundamentally alter the dungeon itself. Only then will the difficulty jump to that lethal setting. Ning Tyron knew those conditions inside and out. When it came to understanding dungeons, no one came close to him. Not even Bai Yuan could match his expertise. Ning had tried this when he was younger and failed. Later he gathered the most elite team he could find and tried again. Still no success. The Vulcan Palace dungeon in particular demanded 2 support roles, and Ning's group was short a damage dealer. That imbalance crippled their attack power. Hell mode never triggered, and with it they missed the chance to obtain elemental fragments. So it was shocking when Lin Moyu, almost by accident, activated hell mode. After a few waves of explosive monsters, the nightmare dungeon he was in suddenly jumped to hell difficulty. The fire element surged, the enemies grew far more powerful, and the blaze that licked the corridors intensified rapidly. The flames icking the skeleton warrior's bones, flared higher and higher, until the creature was little more than a walking inferno. At the same time, the burn damage had escalated. What once took at least 10 hours to reduce a skeleton warrior to ash now did the job in about 3. Lin Moyu had no idea the instance had shifted up to hell difficulty. He only knew the damage numbers were higher and the monsters were stronger. If he didn't hurry, the skeleton warrior would be completely incinerated. With that thought driving him, he sprinted deeper into the dungeon. Chapter 200, Skeleton Warrior, damaged for the 2nd time. Ning Tyron strode into Baishan's courtyard. Bai Yuan gave a soft sigh. Old Ning, you're not busy today? Isn't your precious granddaughter back? Why aren't you spending time with her? Ning Tyron sat down without answering and, without ceremony, grabbed Bai Yuan's teacup and swallowed a mouthful. Your prodigy just triggered the hell difficulty in the Vulcan Palace instance, he said bluntly. Bai Yuan looked unsurprised. Is that so surprising? With his level of skill, it would be more surprising if he didn't set it off. Ning Tyron's expression turned serious. If the hell difficulty is triggered, elemental fragments might drop. So? Bai Yuan cut in. If that happens, the 5 elemental fragments will combine into 1. Are you trying to steal my students' loot? Bai's voice sharpened, half teasing, half accusing. That's not what I meant. When did I say I wanted to steal anything? Ning Tyron protested, his face flushing with anger. Bai Yuan, don't get carried away. Meng Anwen said lightly, Old Bai's just teasing you. Why get so worked up? Bai Yuan smiled and handed a cup of tea to Ning Tyron. Exactly. What's the hurry? Ning Tyron shook his head. I know that if the elemental fragments can be brought together, it'll be a blessing for the boy. If they can't, then that's fate. After all, none of us know where the 2 copies of the Lightning Palace and the Holy Light Palace are. In the dungeon hall, there are definitely dungeons for fire, water, and wind, he continued. But the lightning and light dungeons have never been found. Those 2 are special. You can't locate them by ordinary searching. I did once see the Lightning Palace, Ning added. It appeared on battlefield number 8 more than 10 years ago. At the time, I was locked in combat with the Abyss Demon King and couldn't break away. By the time it was over, it was gone. As for the Holy Light Palace, he said, it truly has never been discovered. Bai Yuan spread his hands. So if he can find either of them, Lin's a very lucky boy. Ning Tyron nodded. That's why I came. Tell your boy to take my Yi to the Vulcan Palace. Even if you can't fuse the elemental fragments into one, single fragments are still very useful, Bai Yuan said. He sneered and added, I don't need to get involved. Let Yi Yi and Kid Lin sort it out themselves. Kid Lin won't refuse if Yi Yi asks. Ning Tyron mulled it over and realized Bai was probably right. He had never publicly acknowledged any romance between Lin Moyu and Ning Yi Yi, so he hadn't thought about this angle. If Yi Yi were allowed to speak for herself, it would be tantamount to forcing him to admit their relationship, something he was reluctant to do. The thought of his cherished girl being embarrassed or claimed by someone else made him uneasy. Bai Yuan patted his shoulder. Old Ning, that flower in your garden will be picked sooner or later. Better to have Lin Boy pick it than let some trash take it. Among my peers, no one is better than Kid Lin, right? And everyone ends up happy, best of both worlds. Ning Tyron continued to hem and haw, unable to decide. At the same time, in Vulcan Palace, Lin Moyu quickened his pace. The skeleton warrior had found the exit. The cave system had 4 entrances, its interior woven together like an ant colony. All the passages converged on a single final exit. And that exit was nasty. You had to traverse the entire maze to reach it. No matter which entrance you used, the result was the same. Lin Moyu's mouth twitched when he studied the topographical map. If you have to cover the whole thing anyway, why bother with 4 entrances? What a useless design, like taking off your pants just to fart. And that replication, there was no way something like this could have been built in less than 10 years. He bolted from the cave as fast as he could. A colossal palace rose into view, ringed in roaring flame. Every pillar was a pillar of fire. Looming over the palace was a gigantic Ming Eye, its shape hauntingly like the Flame Demon King. The burning eye fixed on Lin Moyu and sounded the alarm. The ground trembled as magma burst up, turning into blazing jets that slammed toward him. Damn it, he swore as the flames hit. Lin Moyu snorted and launched himself forward at full speed, recasting the bone armor spell over his body. Flames slammed down around him, exploding on impact and turning the ground into a rolling sea of fire. A massive shockwave swept through, but the bone armor gleamed and took the brunt of it, shielding him from the worst of the blast. The blast tore into his summoned skeletons. One by one, they were knocked and scorched. The fire on their frames flared hotter and hotter, eating away at the little time they had left. Gouts of magma continued to spurt from the ground as sheets of flame rained down, and with every eruption, the skeletons' wounds deepened and their remaining duration shortened. Facing a level 32 nightmare dungeon had already pushed them to their limits, and it was beginning to feel like hell itself. Lin Moyu didn't even realize how far beyond a normal fight he'd walked. At last, he reached the palace entrance. The massive gate stood open, and 2 guards were posted outside. They wore armor of living flame and carried spears wreathed in fire. Their bearing and features reminded him faintly of the Dragon Clan warriors he had seen on the Yuan battlefield. Lizard-like monsters swarmed in at the same time. The guards spotted Lin Moyu and surged toward him. A skeleton warrior charged forward as well, badly wounded but still able to fight. Its title flashed before him, Vulcan Palace Guard, Hell-level elite monster, level 35, power 16,000, agility 10,000, spirit 10,000, physique 16,000, skill flame sweeping, characteristic immune to fire elemental attacks. Lin Moyu stiffened. How had it become a hell-level elite? He remembered feeling the monster getting stronger while he was unleashing attacks earlier, but he'd been too busy to think about it then. Now the change was unmistakable. He was running nightmare difficulty. Hell-level elites shouldn't be showing up here. Had he triggered some special mechanism? There was a quick way to confirm it. Check the storage interface. If a dungeon flips to hell difficulty, the storage window disappears. Lin Moyu glanced at his interface and saw that the storage option was gone. The dungeon had, in fact, shifted into hell difficulty. No wonder the skeleton's flame power had surged so dramatically. When Lin Moyu saw the Vulcan Palace guards, level 35 with a total attribute value of 52,000, he shrugged and accepted it. Hell difficulty was supposed to be like this, harder, but with better experience and drops. He'd played tougher fights before. No matter how strong they were, the only option was to hit them. The skeleton warriors crashed into the Vulcan Palace guards. The guards' great blades flared as they activated skills. Red light streaked out and struck one of the guards hard. It went down, roaring in pain. Flames erupted along the guards' spears, and the two spearmen swept them together. Fire sweep. The area attack had a wide range. With several thunderous bangs, every skeleton warrior froze in place, their bodies going slack as they staggered into a dizzy state. Another crowd control skill, Lin Moyu muttered. Those were the worst. Monsters with control effects could be more dangerous than skilled players, and on hell difficulty, the control felt almost limitless. The Vulcan Palace guards kept hammering the skeletons with their long spears, striking in coordinated waves. Their attacks had the same huge area as a skill, sweeping across all 16 skeleton fighters at once. Lin Moyu had no choice but to raise 20 skeleton mages to respond. None of them were fire skeleton mages. The dungeon nullified the fire element, so fire casters would have been useless. Worse, the skeleton warriors were immobilized by control effects. Without the ability to move, charging was pointless. If he flooded the field with more melee skeletons, they'd only become stationary targets and suffer the dungeon's constant fire damage. It was a real dilemma. He could only summon 20 mages, no more. The 20 skeleton mages immediately cast, unleashing elemental attacks at the two Vulcan Palace guards. Flames licked across the guards' armor, but the mages themselves were fragile compared to the warriors. On hell difficulty, those summoned mages could survive at most an hour. If Lin Moyu couldn't finish the dungeon within that time, they would simply burn out. He forced himself to treat every second as precious, pressing forward without the slightest hesitation. A red light flashed in Lin Moyu's palm. Skill activated, slow curse. The attack speed of the Vulcan Palace guards dropped sharply, but their agility was high, so even slowed they still struck with dangerous speed. Soul flame kindled in his hand. He let it fall, a burning spark landing on the head of a guard. The man screamed, clutching at the wound, but monsters don't behave like trained soldiers. They howled and staggered, yet their flaming spears continued to thrust forward. Lin watched his skeleton warriors falter. Their wounds were worsening, some were already teetering on the edge of death. He sighed. He could feel regret, but regret did not heal bones. You can have all the heart in the world, he thought, but without the power to back it up, you can't save them. The first skeleton crumpled. The second volley of fire from the Vulcan Palace struck moments later and took another. Lin Moyu focused the soul flame, using it to finish off wounded foes where he could. Between the screams and the crackle of flame, a Vulcan Palace guard finally collapsed. Quest: Kill the Vulcan Palace guards. Level 34, EXP plus 160. Obtained: Flame Nucleus. There were bodies everywhere. Lin Moyu's eyes brightened. Corpses made things so convenient. Corpse burst, he shouted, triggering the skill. The blast ripped through the air and took out another Vulcan Palace guard in a single explosion. When the dizziness from the blast faded, the remaining 15 skeleton warriors stood battered and singed. Flames still licked at them, and even without further enemy strikes, they wouldn't hold out much longer. Lin Moyu let out a soft sigh. It was time to finish the final mission. The skeletons surged forward and poured into the palace. The instant the first one crossed the threshold, the enormous flaming eyes set into the palace facade trembled violently and an alarm shrieked. The whole structure shook, as if the palace itself had come alive.